Yo guys, Theo here on Common Sense. Welcome back to another episode of Human Beings, the podcast where we're very interested in individuals. We've been on a break for a few months. Now we're booting up again. Not quite sure exactly the publishing schedule we're going to go with, but it's going to be continuous from this point. What better way to reboot the podcast after a break than bringing back the very first guest, Geoffrey Verity Schofield. Hey man, how are you?
Not too bad. Just finished a workout, upper body, so feeling good. How you doing?
No, I'm good. I saw it was kind of a meaty workout you did today, right?
Yeah, I got last session. I was gonna do kind of just a general upper body stuff, but I ended up doing so much chest and back that I missed doing arms and shoulder isolation. So it's been a whole week since I hit those, which is very unusual for me. And so, yeah, today was some pull-ups, some arcing pull-downs. I actually got a new gym membership near where I live just because there's a few kind of nice pieces of equipment. They have a trap bar. It's a little bit more open with a lot more space, so I can do like short sprints and stuff. And so I'm lucky that I can afford a second gym membership because there's a lot of nice stuff there. So I did pull-ups, pull-downs on this new nice machine, chest-supported rows, Smith machine bench press. Shout out to Basement Bodybuilding for reminding me of those. So I'm kind of reintroducing those. Dumbbell bench press, hammer curls on the cable stack, some push-downs, some overhead extensions, some incline dumbbell curls. And then they also have one of those sort of side delt lateral raise things where it's on your elbows rather than in your hands. So yeah. I've been working. I did like 5 or 6 sets on that. Just when you find a new machine and you're like, all right, I'm just going to spend 15 minutes here just smashing out sets. So I did that, and then finished up with a few standing cable pullovers, and yeah, it was a pretty good amount of volume. Everything pretty darn hard, but yeah, felt good.
Do you see a workout like that? Because, I watch your stories quite frequently. And do you see a workout like this as like a treat?
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily decide how much volume I'm going to do beforehand. I tend to auto-regulate the exact number of sets. But for me, yeah, if there's a new machine and I'm kind of feeling it out, it is a nice change of pace. And a lot of natural bodybuilding is kind of just doing the same things over and over and over and over again. I've been training about 11 years now. It'll be 11 years in a few days, actually. And so, yeah, having just a little bit of a change of pace, whether it's different training modalities or even just different machines, is actually pretty nice, yeah. So it did feel like a treat. And it never feels like a chore. Sometimes I feel like some content creators, they don't even like to lift weights. It's kind of just like, oh, I have to go and do this because it's my job, or I have to do this for the result to look a certain way. But yeah, I like lifting weights. It's nice. Yeah. Call me crazy, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's what I wanted to come to. That I think sometimes you talk about other content creators. I don't even know if they mean it, if it's just this kind of like, it was so tough to do, because you're supposed to say that. It's like, this you hear sometimes between a personal trainer and client, sort of that, now he's got, let's say I just get this typical situation in my head that one client just finished and it's the next one's turn. And it's like, so it's your turn to get tortured. Ha ha ha. Oh yeah, ha ha. That it's always like it is this like punishment. And of course, training can be tough, and especially when you get into it, if you have a bad day or you do something new. But to me, I feel like when you're like far enough into it and you like it, it's like, yeah, it's tough. You on a bad day again, okay, maybe you're not the most excited about it, or there's one particular exercise that it's just so tough or something. But when I was on vacation, I say that they have a decent gym on this island I go to, but I bring the rings also to do outside workouts. And then because all of the people I know, they always ask me, did you go train? Have you trained today? And stuff. And when I explained to them that, I try to chill a little bit, but to me, it doesn't feel like vacation if I don't get to train at all. Like, I would do that sometimes, but if I can train, if it like, why would I not? I like to train, but then I explained though that I try to do it minimalist with the rings, and if it's like a rainy day, I'll treat myself and go to the gym. And they always laugh when I say treat myself, but to me that's actually it. It's like, yeah, okay, it's a cloudy day, I'll let myself go in the gym and do a proper workout.
Yeah, no, if you look at a lot of high level athletes, the purpose of a coach is to hold them back. They don't need someone to push them. They don't need someone to, like, inspire them or motivate them. Like, they're already motivated because they usually enjoy the thing that they're doing, and it feels very natural to them, and it feels good. Like, I can't think of a single workout that I felt worse afterwards than, maybe that one time I hurt my QL the first time. Like, it was kind of a struggle to get home, but 99% of the time or more, I feel better afterwards, and it's still the highlight of my day. I think on Instagram, Runvas Coaching, he did a video kind of smashing on some of these science-based guys because the advice they give is really bad. And the science-based guy was saying something like, oh, like, now we have to go lift. Like, no, you get to lift.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something that you should enjoy. Well, you're doing it wrong if you have to go lift.
Yeah, it's like, what I say is that maybe, it's not an exact percentage, but at least at some point you should at least enjoy like 80% of what you do. And then maybe there's 20% that's like, again, a bad day, or, well, this is not my favorite exercise, but clearly it works a weakness of mine or something like that. But yeah, I definitely say that a lot, those words you just said. And I have an old video definitely with a title like, I don't have to, I get to. Because that's the thing. It's like, it's tough. Okay. It's not it's not a pleasant feeling in that sense, but you actually get to. You're privileged to live in this world where you can go to a gym and use perfect equipment, actively work on getting stronger. It's a privilege. So, yeah, completely, man. But so let's move on. Last time you've been here already. So if you were to just give a short introduction of yourself, like, who are you? What are you about? What do you do?
Yeah, so I kind of wear a few different hats, I guess you could say. So YouTube would be one of them. Coaching would be one of them. Writing, sometimes I haven't written a new book in quite a long time. People keep asking me about updates for that. It tends to be slow going on that front. But yeah, I would say coaching and YouTube are sort of the main ones. And I don't have any degrees or certifications or doctorates or anything like that. I'm just someone who's kind of curious about lifting and enjoys lifting and is mostly self-educated. And so, yeah, I enjoy lifting. I like learning about it, and I like passing that knowledge and that wisdom on to others.
Totally. And I think one thing to mention is that you've worked as a teacher also. I don't know, to me, it's not just that you've worked as it, like, officially like that, but I think the way, and I told you last time that I see you very much as a teacher, like between the sets, talking to the camera, and it's really like, yeah, I'm explaining what's going on. I'm trying to teach you what the process is all about, and I like that, coming back to the science guys thing, my thing is that I'm not against science, obviously, like, especially when I got into lifting, like I actually read studies, but followed a lot of science-based creators. But then what you realize is that it has to be combined with the actual thing, and like, we can talk about these, like, what's the best split? How much volume do you need? What rep range, etc. But in the end, it's like, it's a process that a person goes through. And that's what I like about you, that I feel like that's what you get a lot from you. Like, yeah, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling about it, this is how I'm going into this workout or this set. I think that's really awesome. So, yeah, what's just going on for you lately? We would interpret the question any way you would like professionally or in life, your training. What's up right now with Geoff?
Yeah, it's sort of the same old thing. Just eat, sleep, train, and then YouTube videos. I live pretty boring life, I guess, compared to most people's standards. Like you see some content creators and they're living on the beach or they're traveling the world and stuff like that. I did go on the first vacation in a long time. My wife and I went to Malaysia about a month ago or so. And a few people actually, because I was working out in the hotel gym, and a few people said, "Oh, you're in Malaysia," and they saw one of the exit signs. I guess so, they recognize the language, and so we were there just for a friend's wedding. But apart from that, it's kind of just business as usual, and just enjoying lifting and life here in Shenzhen, China, which is, I guess, already a little bit unusual compared to a lot of people. But for me, it's kind of just normalcy.
Yeah. You say boring life. I don't really think so. It's like, it's many things when people need variety with stuff. It's like, well, you cannot enjoy what you're doing normally then, like I think like vacation, of course, we can need that, just a break, change of environment and stuff. But ideally, you live a life that you're happy to do almost the same thing continuously, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. Sometimes I get asked, similar stuff like people might say, "Oh, does doing an exercise that way cause you pain?" And I was like, well, if it caused me pain, I wouldn't do it that way, obviously, right? So, I guess I say boring in I guess most people's minds, like how they might consider it. But for me, it's a very satisfying and content, peaceful and happy life. But I think most people wouldn't want to live. But it's also because you kind of have to have empathy with realizing what other people want. On the other hand, I'm sure that if I lived the life that a lot of other people would consider to be super exciting, and they're traveling the world and they're going to tons of social engagements, like every week is a party or something else like that. For me, it's okay for a little bit, but it gets like a little bit overwhelming or maybe just a little bit too much, just for me personally. So yeah, I think I enjoy the way I live, but not everyone else would, for sure.
No, and I understand. I would also say boring about some things that I do. Like if I were to describe my diet, it's a boring diet to many people because it's mostly plain foods, But I like it. I find it the boring part. I find it easy, It's like, oh, nice that I don't have to think about all these ingredients, putting so much effort into this. It's like 4-ingredient meals sometimes, pretty much. Are you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, I would say on the diet front, there's a reason why most bodybuilders tend to trend towards the same foods, right? Like clean eating or something similar to that. And then you'll get someone who they say, "Oh no, if it fits your macros," and they kind of take that as a license to eat all kinds of candy or junk food and kind of see how much they can get away with while keeping the calories where they need to be. But the reality is it's really hard to lose weight past a certain point if you're eating a lot of hyper palatable foods. So yeah, like you could do that, but it actually makes it way, way harder than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with living a bodybuilding lifestyle. Like you can still build muscle while living a crazy lifestyle, but it makes it way harder. And you probably can't go quite as far.
Yeah. That's why I say that many times. Like, that's the interesting part that I think you'll agree with, that the most important thing for building muscle is that you can train well, because we tend to, what macros, what split, what this and that. And it's like, well, many different things could go there. There's room for optimization there. But that you train hard and consistently, that's the main thing. And that's why there are some guys that definitely live more of a loose lifestyle, but, they have some muscle. Maybe they're not shredded, but they're decently lean because they do, even if they will go out and drink or something every once in a while, eat some less than ideal food, they are in the gym 3, 4, 5 times per week and crush it then. So yeah, and just about, you know, being empathetic to other people's lifestyles. It's like sometimes on YouTube, like I will present my case, and people chose to come to me. I try to be nuanced. I can't always be like, well, of course it's okay if you want to do this too. And like, you cannot do that with everything. But I think what I mean is that maybe some people would need, I don't know, more happenings, more events or something in their life. But what I mean is like, whatever is your thing, that if you don't feel like, oh, I need to get away from this, you see what I mean? That if you're happy to do whatever it is for the most part, then you have a good thing going, pretty much.
Yeah, I think this is where knowing yourself is pretty important. And I think just as human beings, we all need some social engagement, unless someone's just like a pure psychopath or something. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe some people are wired to where they don't need any. And some people need a lot. I mean, I heard some people say stuff like, oh, COVID was brutal during lockdown. I couldn't see anyone for 2 weeks. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know, man, that doesn't sound too rough. And so, but for me, like, I definitely do need some social engagement, like meeting with friends and stuff. But like, if I go a weekend where there's nothing planned, to me, that's totally fine. But I do notice if it's been like a few weeks, then I'll be like, maybe I should go like do something or meet some friends, something like that. But for some people, they need it like every day. You know what I mean? Like they really like that. And it's just sort of how their personality is or how they're wired, and everyone's a little bit different there for sure.
Like, I agree that people are different, but this is what I noticed too, that especially today, like 2025, people escape reality a lot. And many people, they don't think of it that way, but their friends is pretty much like their friends, quote unquote, are pretty much part of the vices that they use in a sense. I mean, I know that myself when I felt terrible because I live a shit lifestyle in my previous life, you know, and I have like anxiety over a girl or something, and I just want to see a friend, but it's more like, because I can't stand to be alone, you know, it's not like this, oh, I need to kind of refill my social batteries or something. It's like literally, it's just another vice in a sense. And I know people that are like this. So yeah, you know, I'm trying to like give truth to both, that some people need it more like actually, but lots of people, it's just another distraction, even being around people. They're kind of codependent sometimes. I've been like that. Spending time with the guys that are, we kind of just validating each other in our poor lifestyle, pretty much.
Yeah, I think drinking is often one of those things. I mean, I definitely had a phase where I was drinking probably every weekend a little bit, and you know, occasionally getting blackout, that kind of stuff. And then there are definitely some friends that you make where you're kind of just drinking buddies because you never see them in any other context, right? Like you just meet up on the weekend, and then if you're not drinking and you meet up with them, it's a little bit weird because you're used to like always seeing each other when you're drunk, and now you're in a different sort of context. And so, yeah, I would say drinking is like the big one where misery kind of loves company. And definitely I've worked with clients and I've experienced this myself where for some people, if you say you're not drinking or like, no, I'm good, they're cool with it. Like they're totally fine. Other people, like they'll start pressuring you and trying to get you to sort of join in. And I would say I'm a lot better now saying no, generally, but also specifically that. And if someone is generally a friend and they say, oh, like, do you want some whiskey? And you say, yeah, sure. Or if you say no, either way, like they'll respect your opinion. But for some people, they would rather have a drinking buddy than a friend. Like it's more important for them to have someone to drink with rather than whatever you actually want. So that's definitely a flag. If someone's I think in your 20s is when a lot of guys experience this, where you're in this friend group and you kind of don't want to do a lot of the stuff that they're doing, but you know, peer pressure can be very, very powerful when you're a younger guy. And just realize that if you say no and they make a big fuss about it, well, they've kind of shown their true colors. And so maybe get some better friends or some actual friends rather than just drinking buddies when you don't actually really want to drink anymore. And sometimes that's a phase you kind of have to go through. But I would say don't let that linger too long, right? If it's a few years in your 20s or maybe in college or something, yeah, that's fine. But, you probably don't want to be the guy who's getting into your like 30s and 40s and his 50s and still living that lifestyle, or at least living that lifestyle when you don't really want to do it. You're just doing it to placate other people.
Exactly. Like, just remind me, are you like 35?
36.
Okay, I'll be 33 soon. No, I agree with all of that. And, it's interesting, this with the drinking buddy thing. I think I personally never spent time with people that I actually don't like at all. Nice. But you've been in these... Sorry?
Drinking buddies. That's just water.
Yeah, I hope so. It was a huge bottle otherwise. But I've had these people that I like them, and I would be happy to run into them today. But when I started changing, I have my story with the panic attacks, and when I just had less to escape from, because I didn't know it at the time, but I faced a lot of stuff and healed pretty much from it. And then I just naturally noticed that I don't even want to do these things as much. And then you kind of, out of habit, these are the people you spend time with. So, I'll be there and I'll just start noticing that we just do the same shit. It's like now we're supposed to drink beer and order some crap food, and maybe we'll go out drinking in a bar. I don't really want to do any of this anymore. So there it was more of a well, begrudgingly, like I would love if these guys kind of started changing their lifestyle the way I did, but they just didn't. So without any hard feelings, I just gradually go away from that. But I can think of times, let's say you are with some of let's say I would be with some of these friends, and then, I don't know, I'm out and we meet some other people, and then you notice that some people that you don't really know or you haven't really vibed well with them, they kind of just like, no, come on, stay. And that's where I get that feeling when people really, really just need whoever, just someone, so I feel okay about staying up later and drinking even more.
Yeah, no, it's, and I've had instances where I bumped into a friend that I knew from a really long time ago, and they start explaining to me why they haven't been going to the gym.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. And I'm like, no, it's cool. I don't give a shit. I signed up for the member, but it was too far away. And I'm like, no, it's okay. They feel bad about themselves because they've seen sort of what you've done or where you've gone, and it's a sort of awkward situation to be in, because you don't even have to. I guess bodybuilding is one of those things where it's on display, right? You don't even have to explain it or show it. It's just there. It's literally your body. And so, yeah, if you used to sort of live a certain lifestyle with some friends and then they bump into you later, well, it's pretty obvious if you've been taking care of yourself or not. And, it does make some people feel bad or feel self-conscious, even if you don't intend for that to happen.
Oh, yeah, completely. I can relate to that so much. Many examples, running into sort of a friend of a friend, someone I've met here and there that I like, but I don't really know him super well. And he immediately starts asking me, oh, how's the training going? Oh, yeah, you're really fit and that. And especially I try to not be the guy that's all about my thing when I meet people that aren't really as into it. But then, so I just respond something, it's going well, blah, blah. And then, well, how are you? What's up with you? And then I get that one too, with the kids, and I haven't quite had the time. I'm I literally wasn't even asking about training. I was just wondering, how are you doing?
Yeah. And it's, you can tell they feel bad about it, but And maybe that's a good thing in some ways, because maybe you've planted the seed in their mind of oh, maybe I should feel bad about living, in an unhealthy way, right? Like it's not even that you're shaming them. It's like your presence has done something to them, or they realize that maybe they should make some changes.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I've experienced that a few times, and it's always a little bit of a shock to me because it's not like I'm sort of flexing, like, oh yeah, look what I've done, bro. No, but it just happens sometimes. Like it's happened a few times, and I always try to sort of say, no, like, don't worry about it. But there have been a couple times as well where, they messaged me a year or two later, and they were like, look at the change in my head. And like, that's where it's actually a good thing, because you can show people that, like, hey, yeah, they can make that change.
Oh yeah, completely. Lead by example. People mostly don't do as you say; they do as you do. And it's like you say, you don't actively shame them; they just feel shame because you're a living mirror reminder of something. And I mean, you're obviously way bigger than you used to be. But for me, I think it's a contrast. Also, I was such a different person. Like I looked like this hipster, kind of skinny, fat, low T from poor lifestyle and everything, and suddenly just this like pretty much the inverted version of myself or something. So I think I get tons of those reactions from people, and yeah, it's just the funny part I think is that people assume that you judge them, because I've changed, I'm better than you now. But the funny thing is that they are the ones judging you, because like you say, I always show up like I don't want to be only. I'm not like I am in my YouTube videos to people in real life or something. It's like not everyone has to take this as seriously as me. So yeah, but so one part is like a little annoying like that, but there is a part. I've had so many people outside of like my content, just people in real life, reach out, or I run into them and I realize, in one way or another, I had some kind of impact on this person's lifestyle. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one of the most, I guess, like satisfying and gratifying parts of the YouTube, where you can really, and I guess social media in general, you can really scale your message, not quite infinitely. There aren't infinite number of people, but I mean, yeah, you could reach thousands and tens of thousands and potentially millions of people. And so, yeah, I'm always very sort of careful about how I phrase things and what I say exactly, just so nothing is misinterpreted. But also so that, you can inspire people. And I think inspiration is just as important as information. Some people are lacking one more than the other, but a lot of people are lacking both as well. So, and I guess it's nice, as if you put out a YouTube video, say 5 years ago, like that's still doing something. And then as the years go on, like I get more and more messages from people as well who are like, look at my 5 year transformation after watching your content. And it's like, wow, like it's actually enough time to go from nothing to a pretty impressive physique for sure.
Completely. So I want to soon transition a bit more into actual training stuff and that, but I guess one related thing, just out of curiosity, how we talk about this like with boring life and being social and stuff. Like, how social would you say that you are?
I don't need much social interaction. Like a little bit goes a long way for me. And I don't know if this is more genetic or what, but yeah, I just don't need a lot. I do need a little, but I've never been like the life of the party. So I would say it's hard to put like a number on it or a percentage, but I would say, on the sort of introvert to extrovert scale, I'm definitely way more introverted than most people would think or realize. Like YouTube is inherently an introverted task, at least at first, right? Like if you're Mr. Beast or something, and you're interacting with tons of people, that's more of an extroverted kind of thing where you have to organize a whole bunch of stuff. And, you're the center of this whole web, of this whole corporation, this whole conglomerate. But if you're just talking to yourself in your room or in the forest or something, that is sort of an introverted thing, because the interactions that you have on the screen, those are not really exactly the same. You know what I mean? As like a real life interaction, especially in like just a comment section, right? Like if I get a few hundred comments on a video and I'm responding to them, I would say that's more of like an introverted activity than an extroverted activity, because you're interacting with people, but the context is almost like it doesn't feel the same as like meeting someone in real life. You know what I mean? Like, would playing video games be an introverted or an extroverted activity? Even if you're playing with real people, I would say it's still kind of an introverted activity. Like if someone has social anxiety, they probably don't have a problem playing an MMO because it has a totally different feel. So I think YouTube and social media in general, it's a lot more introverted than a lot of people realize, at least until someone gets to a certain level and they have like a camera crew and, all set up. But at the start, I mean, even Mr. Beast, I think one of his first videos was like counting to 1 million or something out loud. It's like, that's not an extroverted activity. That's you and a camera and a whole lot of numbers and nothing else.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you define introversion and extroversion. Because, I mentioned, we talked a bit before we started recording, and I mentioned I'm a person with kind of high highs and low lows. And I'm just learning, about knowing yourself. I need to learn to not go too high and descend safely and not go too low, pretty much. And I feel then many times like a paradox in a sense that sometimes I'm so extroverted. Like I talk to people everywhere. It just comes so naturally to me to just externalize whatever I have on my mind, whatever is going on. Always taking other people. I've had to learn to not like you steal everything, because not all people take the word in this way. But at other times, it's interesting because you mentioned like the YouTube comments, because when I'm in a lower state, as I call it, I don't want to see it, whether positive or not. It's like, it's so intense for me at the time then. But when I'm higher, I happily engage with everything, positive, negative, and everything in between. And so to me, it has something with introversion and extroversion to do still. And I guess why I think of you as an extrovert is like how like freely you share your thoughts on like the Instagram stories, for instance. It's like, it's not like, I have to do this task of recording. It's like, nah, it's because you feel like you have something on your mind that you just want to get out there, And I think sometimes some people, they might be extroverted, but end up living a bit introverted because, I don't know, there's just not the right people around sometimes. And I think also, at least me, when I'm in this extroverted place, I still am very happy to spend time with myself, because it's like I just enjoy my own company. It's like I'm talking to myself and I'm thinking about all these interesting things, So I don't know. It's just interesting to think like what really is introversion and extroversion.
Yeah, because like before technology, it was a pretty clear divide between being with yourself and your own thoughts and being with other people. Right, and then sharing thoughts kind of collectively and back and forth. But with technology, you do get this kind of blurry situation where, okay, you take your phone and you're still alone and you're recording something and then you send it out. You were never with anyone, but it still has an effect on other people, and they can still kind of interact with you in a delayed sense, but also in a slightly distant sense. Right? Like if you're having a conversation face to face, or even in real time to a certain extent, maybe not quite as much, in a live video call or something, or a podcast, those are a little bit different from like, in a face to face situation. And if you're sort of recording a YouTube video on Monday and then posting it up on Friday, it feels live to the person watching it. It feels like they're watching it as you say it, but you said it last week or several weeks ago, or sometimes even several months ago, right? And so is that an extroverted activity if you're responding to comments from like, Playboy 457 in the comments or something? Like it's I don't know. To me, it feels a little bit more introverted, or at the very least, it feels different from like going to a dinner party and like meeting lots of new people.
Mm.
Like it just feels like a very different situation from that for sure. Like it's extroverted in the sense that you are impacting other people's lives, hopefully positively, but like from an individual standpoint, it definitely feels different for sure.
Mm. Yeah, I guess how I think of it is that the extrovert is someone, the more natural it feels to share sort of your inner world, the more extroverted you are, in my view, sort of. Because since I feel like I can be both, really, this is a good question. Actually, you say you don't have a like huge social need, but do you have the opposite? You know, do you feel like, oh, I need my space, I need my alone time? Because for me, in a lower state, as I call it, then it's definitely like, okay, I don't want to be in this place because I will be overwhelmed. I will just be boring around there. So I need some time to charge my batteries. While right now it's more like, okay, I've been out talking I overworked myself way too much, but I could keep going, you know? So yeah, I still would agree that of course there's less resistance to sit on a screen and whenever you feel like it, write a comment. But yeah, no, just interesting to think about.
Yeah, it's I think if someone is looking to get into, I guess, YouTube or social media, just realize that it's going to be a different kind of feeling from like going to an office and like interact, because you're going to be spending a lot of time either alone kind of working on projects or like interacting with people online, which are, they're both fine, but they're definitely a different from like going to a school to work as a teacher. And so, yeah, I think if someone is kind of a classical extrovert where they do enjoy spending a lot of time like with people and near people, it might be a different experience from what they're used to. For me, my personality is quite suitable for it, but it's definitely not for everyone.
No, completely. Yeah, the last thing I was going to say is this with on the screen. Like, today, what it is, it's like a complement to actual social interaction. Because that's what I noticed that, for instance, some of my best friends, they don't really live very close to me. So, a lot will be like talking on the phone and that. And I noticed that that's great, but I need to be around people to some degree also. But with the online, with the YouTube thing, when I do live streams, then I actually feel more like, because I'm going to talk to the chat directly. It's like, yeah, they're not here. And that's why, the main thing is that the person on the other end is a lot more brave in what they would express, or a lot blunt. They say things they wouldn't say to your face. But to me, it kind of feels like I'm here in front of some guys, and I'm just like, oh, what do you have to say? Oh, I'll respond to you. Well, what do you have to say? I'll respond to you.
I think you could probably think of it on like a sliding scale. Oops, on a sliding microphone. On a sliding scale from like 0% activities, which are totally introverted, and 100% extroverted activities. 100% might be going to an event with totally new people where you have to have like sort of forced heart-to-heart conversations with a bunch of different new people. And then 0% introversion might be you're reading a book at home alone or something, right? And there are going to be a variety of activities sort of between that, like making a YouTube video and then responding to comments. That's not 0%. Like that's not a purely introverted activity. But it's also definitely not 100% where it's like that real sort of face-to-face interaction with a whole bunch of new people. And so, it's hard to say, oh, is a live stream like a 60% or a 40%? So, but it's going to be somewhere in between those. And I actually would be kind of curious if maybe they could study this, where does, 2 hours of 50% activity add up to 1 hour of 100% activity? Or is there something about like face-to-face human interaction that you just can't quite get through a podcast or through a live stream or through, content creation or anything like that. But I think, there probably is something about face-to-face interaction. Like I saw my friend at the new gym that I went to. He's actually one of the reasons why I signed up to this gym, because I met him and another friend, and we all went there, and I just got a day pass, and I actually really liked the gym. And so I saw him today, and I helped spot him on bench press. And I think that kind of stuff is definitely a little bit different from like YouTube comments, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was going to move on, but I want to say one thing. But one thing, I saw that clip when you like greet the guy and he's off camera, and in my head, I just started for whatever reason, I was like, what if this was like fake? Like there's no one there. You just go up like, just pretending. No, but it's a great. What I noticed for me is that I'm very extroverted, but I'm a little bit of a hyper independent person, and I'm working on that. Because it's great to be able to do a lot by yourself, but sometimes I notice it's sort of a limitation. But so one thing I think, especially in 2025, when, I don't know, people live the way they do, it's not like you're going to meet your friends all the time as an adult, So one thing I've done is to go out of my way to just get to know people in like places I frequent, like the gym, like a grocery store, other stores I would go to. Because then I get that little like, oh, hey, how are you doing? It doesn't have to be this super deep connection. But I have noticed that when I feel good, that's enough for me. And it's going to happen so naturally. But then when I'm in not as good of a place, then I'm like, I probably should have invested a bit more in these relationships, because now I'm kind of low, and it feels like it takes more effort to do it now. So sometimes I think I should prepare by investing a bit more when I feel like I don't need it for those times, pretty much.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's very easy, especially as a guy, to kind of retreat into yourself and to do like the monk mode thing, or whatever they're calling it nowadays, like where you're just focused on yourself, you're just focused on your business. And before, just focusing on your business would kind of require interaction in person, like if you're making something like a physical product or whatever. But nowadays, with everything online, or a lot of stuff online, you don't really need that in a lot of businesses. So I think a lot of guys, like, they're really focused on their finances and really focused on building themselves up, sometimes really focused on the gym as well, but they almost lose that ability to interact with people. Like, they just never really develop those skills, or because once you're out of school, there's a lot less structure, right? Like when you're in school, and then even in university, a lot of your life is kind of like, okay, this time you go here, this time you go here, this time you go here. You're in the class, you can't really leave, but you can go to the bathroom or whatever, but your life is a lot more structured in general. But then once you're an adult, you can kind of do whatever you want, right? It's kind of a wild awakening when you're out of college and you're just like, oh, I can kind of go do anything. Like, yeah. And I guess to a certain extent you can do that before, but your whole day is just whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so it can be difficult for some guys where they kind of just retreat into themselves with video games, or with, however you can fill the day with a lot of bullshit. Let's put it that way. Like, you might think 24 hours is a long time. Well, 8 hours for sleep, and then you wake up, oh, the morning's suddenly gone, and then it's already afternoon, and then oh wow, it's already you can waste a lot of time through just being on the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of guys, they kind of retreat into themselves, and they almost lose that ability to socialize, and that probably doesn't get easier as you go along. So it's worth kind of keeping up with.
Oh yeah, completely. I've always thought about that in school. It's just, you're just forced to show up and be around a lot of people your age. So you're going to go to school, but you have breaks and stuff. And so, and that's just on the note of like friends that are really friends. You notice how much, like when you finish high school, the people that you still spend time with, those would be your friends. But a lot of people, you notice that, we were just kind of in the same setting, pretty much. But this is all very interesting. But I want to move on to some other topics that are going to be related. It's because it's about being a person, pretty much. But I wanted to ask you kind of an open question, a question I'm not always happy to get, but I just want to see what you do with it. Like, I just want to ask you, what is your like goal right now, or goals? It can be about training, like what are you focusing on with your training, anything specific that you're zoning in on right now? Any other goals, anything you feel like this is what I'm in the midst of working on right now?
Well, on the training front, I've kind of switched to a more hybrid athlete style kind of thing. Last 4 years or so, it's been basically just pure hypertrophy training. So legs as big as possible, upper body as big as possible, back, arms, everything, kind of just everything hypertrophy. But I've been running a little bit more, and I would say right now I'm a roughly 5.5 minute mile shape, maybe a little bit faster. I'll probably do a secret time trial that I won't post, but I kind of want to see where I am, just because training is one thing, but actually doing the thing is the most revealing sort of test of your fitness, right? So it's a very simple test, just 4 laps and a little bit extra of the track. That's a mile. How fast can you run it, right? So you can do all the training in the world, and you can kind of get a pretty good idea of where you are. But yeah, if you don't actually go and do the thing, sometimes you don't really know where you are. And usually you're a little bit slower, because a mile is a pretty long way, a lot further than a lot of people think. So that's kind of my new goal. I would like to see what the world's heaviest mile for someone over 200 pounds is. I think I've been trying to research it. There aren't that many people who are verified 200 plus pounds, and then you verify their time. There's a lot of like, oh yeah, I know a guy who ran 4:45 and he was jacked, but that doesn't mean they're over 200 pounds, right? They probably, because if you look at most middle distance runners, a lot of them are like 130 to 150 pounds, maybe 160. With a few outliers, maybe ballooning up to like 165 or something. And so, yeah, if you take a 185 pound guy and put him on the start line of a middle distance race, they're going to look gigantic, but they're still not as big as like a bodybuilder, right? So right now I'm around 205 to 210. This morning I was 94.4 kilos. So almost 210, somewhere around there. So I'd like to get a little bit leaner, maybe close to 200, because the more weight you carry, the tougher it is. Just every pound of fat, or even just of muscle, is just more energy that you have to expend. So I'll have to kind of see what is the verified best that I've seen anyone do, and then if it's 445 or 440. Maybe start chipping away and seeing if I could get that. I don't know if I could call it a world record, just because it's kind of hard to verify. But yeah, I'd like to see if I could go below 5 at some point.
I mean, if you find some kind of verified best, you can at least claim an unofficial world record or something. But actually, one question about that's interesting for me as a coach also is combining cardio or running with lifting. When you program, what would you say, like, this is what you should keep in mind?
Well, I'm still pretty new to it. So I've been asked a few times to make videos about like hybrid training or something. I've only been doing it like 2 months, which is not really enough time to kind of have a really firm grasp on it.
Sure.
I do have 10 years of distance running from like 15 years old to 25, and then about 11 years of lifting. So I would say I have a head start with the hybrid stuff, because I have a good amount of experience with each. But combining them is quite difficult. I would say for upper body, it hasn't really impacted much at all. But for lower body, you have to be much more mindful of fatigue. I know I talk about how fatigue is not like, it's kind of overblown, but yeah, if you're doing a lot of cardio and doing it fairly hard because you have a specific goal, and then also trying to go heavy and progress on like squats or deadlifts or whatever other hinges and squat patterns you have, something kind of has to give, right? Like if I was doing 4 years of hypertrophy training, I was kind of already at the limit of what I could recover from in terms of the volume that I'm doing for lower body, in terms of how hard I'm pushing. And so I've kind of had to reduce the volume that I do for lower body stuff. And so, if my legs shrink a half an inch or a quarter of an inch or something, I'm okay with it. If I get the sort of like chicken legs comments or whatever, I don't really care about that. You could easily say, oh, running a 4 whatever mile is worth more to me than a quarter of an inch or a half an inch on my legs or whatever it is, whatever it ends up being. So I would say, yeah, just realize that progression for lower body stuff is probably going to be a little bit more difficult, especially if you're at an advanced level. If someone's a beginner, I don't think it matters at all. Like, I think actually it's just going to be a positive overall. I think the interference effect, it becomes more apparent the more advanced you are at whatever task it is, right? So if someone is, an 800-pound squatter or something, and they start doing marathon training, well, like something has to give because they've achieved a super high level. Similarly, let's say someone is a 2:05 marathoner, so like truly world class, and then they say, oh, but I also want to get a 600-pound squat. Like, you're kind of going in different directions, and so just realize that the interference effect, it is a thing. And the higher the level you achieve or want to achieve, the more it's going to play a role. And I think part of that is due to fatigue and just not being able to do as much of whatever specific training it is. But I think there probably is just some morphological, physiological stuff where a 600-pound squatter looks a certain way and is a certain way, and then a 2:05 marathoner, they just have a different body type that they need to do that thing. And so it's sort of a work in progress. So I can't say too much too definitively. And so I'm kind of playing it by ear, and I'll probably have a video about it in a few years.
In a few years. No, I love that.
Yeah.
I with certain things, I've also waited like years before I talk about it at all. Sometimes you can start dipping your toes into something a little bit, but it's like even writing a book. I started writing my training book after 3 years of training because I felt at that point like, okay, I have a good foundation. I'm clearly moving forward. But when I started writing, I just felt like, I'm not ready yet. And I gave it 2.5 more years pretty much. And then I did it. But I still, it's funny because I'm sure that you just using some common sense that you're going to have a pretty good take already. And I guess one more thing to ask you about that is just that, how would you sort of periodize or structure your training? Like, let's do this. Tell me about your split. You've done hypertrophy, and then like how you adjusted that to get the training, the running in.
Yeah. So my initial original split before I started doing this, and this is one that I've been using for about 4 years, was legs day 1, then kind of chest and back day 2. And then day 3 was the so-called bro day. So basically arm isolation and a little bit of delt isolation, maybe some abs, just small stuff. And then I basically switched to upper, to the chest and back. So upper and then lower, and then the bro day, and then a run, and then repeating. I kind of just take days off when I feel like it, when I feel like I need one. So it's kind of auto-regulated. So I was basically running once every 4 days, and that felt pretty good. I started doing more cardio in the upper days as well, just right after training. And then now I'm sort of trying to squeeze in a second run in that split. So it's like upper, run, lower, bro, run, and then repeated. So it's sort of like a 5-day thing. I don't really want to get to the point where I'm only hitting a muscle group once every 6 or 7 days. I like to have a little bit more frequency than that. So I probably won't extend it out too much. And for me, 2 runs in 5 days is pretty good. It can be a little bit tough doing lower body after a run the day after. So I'll probably have that run be a little bit less intense, like a threshold thing or maybe a progression, just so it's a little bit easier to recover from. I think it's doable. I just have to warm up well in the lower body day and kind of play things by ear. But it's kind of a work in progress. And I think when it comes to your split, a lot of it is just sort of finding what you can recover from while also getting in all the work that you want to over the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah. It's interesting for me because I haven't been doing much cardio during these years. I've done hypertrophy. Like that's another thing I can ask you about, but it's more like, because of course we're talking about marathon runners and a 600-pound squat. It's like, yeah, you're going to have to pick and choose a little bit there. But for, just people that you coach that maybe don't train as hypertrophy train on as high of a frequency as I would, for instance, maybe they want to get some cardio in just for general health, like general, decent cardiovascular performance. So since I don't have too much experience with that myself, it's like just good to hear some ideas about programming. You can often figure it out, like probably after a day of running, probably the heavy squat day isn't the day right after, for instance, but that's something to ask. I feel like, so I used to run more when I was younger. Like the main exercise I did before Uncommon Sense and as a teenager and stuff was running like 3 to 6 kilometers. I would run most of the time. But so I've had I have an idea of like performance in cardio. But what I notice now, I would do the odd run, just completely. I feel like just moving, and I walk a lot. And then I train at a really high intensity in my hypertrophy training. And what I notice is that when I do run, I do still have like decent performance. And I'm thinking, I want to hear your thoughts that if you train to failure and beyond, like you're going to get elevated heart rate from lots of stuff, even upper body stuff sometimes. So I'm just curious. I feel like the combination of this high intensity and walking a lot, just being on my feet a lot, at least, like, of course, if I want to actually perform at a high level, of course, I'd have to do some more specific cardio. But what are your thoughts on that? How much like high frequency, high intensity hypertrophy training contributes to cardiovascular performance?
It definitely, I think, especially lower body compounds for a moderate to high reps, like you'll get something out of that for sure. For instance, like let's say you're not doing any cardio and you're kind of relying on like the heavier squats, the 8 to 10 to 12 rep stuff. Like you'll definitely get some stimulus from that in terms of cardio. It won't be enough to, you could probably perform okay. But yeah, in terms of like specificity, it won't really do a lot for performance for sure. And I think most people could probably benefit from doing specific cardio. I can tell that there are definitely some lifters, some content creators, where they really don't like cardio. I can, because they're saying like, oh, like, nah, bro, squats are all you need for cardio, or like, you can elevate your heart rate, and like you can. But I think it goes too far when people say like that's all you need for health. Like you don't need cardio. I would probably push back against that. But in terms of like work capacity in the gym, if you have an aerobic base of running, and I did as well. I had 10 years as a runner. I think you can probably get away with a lot less cardio than someone who doesn't have that base. I didn't do cardio for a lot of 2022 and some of 2021 because I was just focused on hypertrophy. And it's easy to kind of squeeze that out and then just, kind of forget about it. And I think you can get away with that sometimes for a while, sometimes for years. But I also think that it is possible to kind of degrade that energy system eventually, where like you have this base, you used to be a runner, but then you don't do cardio for like a while. I think it's possible for that to kind of sneak up on you. And especially if you're doing like more specific lower body training only, like you're avoiding the high rep squats or the high rep RDLs, and everything is like the optimal movement where you're targeting like only these fibers. Like if it's mostly isolation stuff, it's going to be way, way, way less of a stimulus for cardio. So yeah, you see some people where like all their training is single leg or single arm work. Everything is like slow and controlled, and they're not actually, it's not actually a very big metabolic stress systemically. Whereas if someone's training is like, start off with 3x20 on squats, like, that's a very different story.
Yeah. Just one quick comment and then I'll move on. Just that I think it seems like if you do hypertrophy training, high intensity, high frequency, and walk quite a bit, I think there's even studies on this, that it's enough for cardiovascular like health. But obviously, like I said before, if you actually want to perform at a higher level, you'd have to do something more specific. I'm not against cardio. I'm not like that, but I haven't done much of it. I guess I'm still thinking of like, how would I want to implement it? But anyway, I have something I want to move on to, but just one more question. Like other goals other than training, when people ask me about that, I'm like, well, I pretty much want to do what I'm doing, just more, almost. But, when it comes to YouTube, books, coaching, do you have anything specific you're working towards? Or are you kind of the same?
Yeah, kind of the same. I would say I'm not particularly ambitious. I do see some content creators where I can tell they're very driven by the numbers. You can see them like changing the titles of the videos in the first hour and changing the thumbnails and like really hyper optimizing for growth on YouTube. I don't really care about that nearly as much as some people. If maybe at some point, but I kind of just want to make the videos that I'm interested in and more about talking to the subscribers that I already have, rather than like, ooh, how can I get more? How can I hit a certain number? So for me, it's not. I mean, it's always tempting as a content creator to think about like, oh, what if I hired 6 editors and started posting a million shorts and started really trying to blow up and paying people to repost all my stuff and blah blah blah. But to me, I'm not that ambitious for sure.
No, and we talked a little bit about this before starting the podcast. I think we're quite similar there, but we can still have sometimes like, oh, I'd like to try this or something. Just when we were speaking about it, like, have you ever thought about doing more like live stuff?
No, I mean, sometimes the internet here is, sometimes it's okay. Like right now it seems actually really good, but I've definitely had podcasts where the other person was frozen for like half the time. It was just like audio and like they could see me, but everything on their end was frozen, 80% of the time or something. And with live streams, I think that's part of the reason why I don't have a podcast. I thought about it at one point, but just the thought of like inviting someone on like the GVS podcast or whatever, and then like it freezing or like the internet shitting out, like that would. So for live stream stuff, there's a lot of talk about like China's working on 8G or whatever. I don't know, man. I'm not seeing that many G's over here. It's like 3G or some shit. So probably no live stream stuff in the future. Maybe if things clear out, but No plans.
I get what you're saying. You have your podcast, and then you're the one lagging all the time. No, I just think you do really well, honestly, with live streams. Like, you share your thoughts and get questions. You probably make decent money on super chats also. So you just something to think about. But yeah, I wanted to move on to something we chatted a little bit before the podcast. Pretty much the kind of. I guess we'll just get into it, but sort of let's start here, the mindset part of the training, because it's an overused word sometimes. But I think this is part of what I think you bring to the table that I feel is missing in a lot of content. Like, you as a person, how are you going into this? How do you think about things? How do you talk to yourself? That kind of thing. So if I just started like this, like mindset, what is that to you?
It's something that I guess I don't necessarily actively think about as much as I used to, because you kind of develop these habits that serve you well, and then you don't necessarily need to think about them later. And then, someone asks you, like, what were you thinking about? And sometimes there's like a specific cue that you're trying to focus on or something, or maybe like you're trying to be aggressive with a certain exercise. But on a lot of movements, I'm not necessarily thinking. I'm sort of just doing and feeling and trying to execute. But I'm not. It's definitely possible to overthink, and I can kind of tell as a coach when someone's overthinking, because they're like moving really slowly and they're like, doing overhead extensions and like, but I gotta stay in this position. And you can kind of see them trying to self-assess during the set, except, and I think that's important at first to try to feel where you are, but there's a difference between thinking and knowing and analyzing. And feeling and being in the moment. And sometimes I'll ask someone like, okay, like, how did that feel? And they won't even really know how to respond. They'll be like, oh, here's an EMG study. I'm like, no, that's not that's not what I asked. I asked for how did you feel during the set? And I think for some people that's definitely a necessary skill that can be difficult to develop.
Yeah, I guess I should have started it like this, because this that we're going to talk about now, it's not super clear. It's not as easy to ask like straight questions like about training, like, this with running and training. It's not as clear. And I've spent all these years trying to clarify everything to myself, because, the way I got into stuff, I just realized so much that, it wasn't so much about knowing how to train and there's so much about the relationship to yourself and understanding your patterns and psychology and everything. So I guess I just put holistic bodybuilding is what I call what I do. And I tried to summarize it. I wrote some pompous sentence like individual engineering. That's really what it is. And self-mastery through the trinity of body, mind, and soul. And so the mind and soul part, they are sometimes hard to keep apart. But I just wrote down some stuff here, like self-talk, push versus pull, masculine versus feminine, patterns, rigidity versus flexibility, perfectionist mindset, optimization, ideas, perspectives, beliefs. Like all these things could go into the mind stuff, I feel like. You talked about, what you mentioned. I actually have a section in my book. I talk about like self-conscious versus self-aware, that you need to be observing yourself. But if you're like, am I doing it right? You're going to get in your own way also. So it's finding that sweet spot there. I guess one thing that comes to mind is when you tried fasting. I remember one story because I was watching with my popcorns then. But you talked about, I don't know, I guess it's like also in response to some messages you get, but pretty much that, about how hard you can train on a fast. And pretty much you shared how like, well, I'm not just giving myself an out, like, you're fasted, so you don't have to train as hard. This is the kind of stuff that I mean, that people maybe don't even realize that, that's mindset to me. It's like, any thoughts just when I say that?
Yeah, I think you can always find an excuse. It's a lot
Mm,
easier to find an excuse than a reason to do something, especially if it's
mm,
difficult. And yeah, we always have kind of expectations of how things should go, or maybe, yeah, it's easy to say, oh, well, I didn't hit a PR, but I haven't eaten in 4 days. Oh, like
mm,
everyone's going to understand. No
mm,
one's going to be like, oh, you pussed out, right? Because you're in what would be easy to say is a difficult situation, but that doesn't mean it's actually a difficult situation, right?
mm,
Like, it's just the expectation other people might have. Oh, you haven't eaten in 4 days. Of course you're weaker, but like, you
mm.
have to give yourself the opportunity to win, right? Like, you can't just assume you'll lose. Like, that's,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, that, to me, it's more comfortable to do that. It's easier for sure, but
Mm,
yeah, you can't go into a workout with the expectation it's going to go badly or poorly. It's just,
mm.
I see that pretty commonly, right? Where people kind of, they self defeat before they even really give it an honest shot.
Yeah.
Um, and bodybuilding is basically all about just those small victories adding up over time.
Mm,
Those small plus ones, every single, not even every single workout, but occasionally, that kind of show you're headed in the right direction. And so, yeah, if you sort of talk yourself out of greatness every session, you're not going to go
yeah.
anywhere. It's
Yeah.
just impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I guess that's part of it to me, that I always look for being as truthful with myself as possible. Like, because, I have these videos too. Your explanation is an excuse, because what is an excuse? It's an explanation of why it didn't happen or why you couldn't do it. It's still an explanation, but sometimes it's legit that, I was short on time. I had to prioritize this, or I did feel this pain or something. So I try to always make sure, am I telling myself the truth? And even if I would do an excuse, like, you know what, I actually have a really poor day. I just like, for once, I almost never do it, but I actually like to do something else. Then I want to make up a lie that, oh, it was actually right. It's no, you just gave yourself a day. Just be honest with it. But there's also another thing. It's not just about truth. Certain things are about perspective. I take this example that if you and I are here and there's a glass that someone drank a bit from between us, if you say there's no glass here, okay, now you're just in denial of reality. But you could say this glass is half empty, and I could say it's half full. And at certain times, the more optimistic or pessimistic mindset or outlook on things might serve you better. But I think this is one thing too. I see it so much that when you make up like genetics and the fake natty stuff, right? When you put these standards, that, oh, I don't have these, clearly I don't have the arm genetics like Geoff has, or, oh, that guy, this standard, you cannot look this way if you're not on steroids. Now, if you go around choosing to look at things this way, that will influence what you do, right? While if you just decide to do something, I don't know really, but I get really inspired seeing Geoff. He's natural. He's done it. Okay, I have to. Let's see how far I can go. Or I don't know. People lie about being on steroids, but I'll just assume that the person that says they're natural are. And of course, I cannot just be complete. I have to, if I'm going to follow someone closely and take their info. If I actually think they're not natural, okay. But when you're not sure, just choosing the different perspective. So I think this, like, what do you think about that also? Like, just your outlook you're choosing to have on things.
Yeah, because as I said before, you kind of have to put yourself at least in the opportunity to win.
Mm,
And I know someone's going to be like, yeah, I was on the ninth rep of deadlifting and I felt something in my lower back, but I went for the 10th anyway because I wanted that opportunity to win. Like, there's being smart and kind of
mm,
observing reality. Like, you should still listen to your body. If I ever get some kind of sharp pain or something, let's say I'm squatting and on the ninth rep, even if it just feels a little bit weird, like, let's
mm,
say like there's a wobble or something, or like I'm not moving the way that I know I should be moving, I don't mind racking the bar
mm,
because it's something real, right? That's not just sort of a self-talk thing. No, like, that's
yeah.
reality that you can't you can't self-talk your way around reality. It doesn't work that way. And so, yeah, this is where, a lot of bodybuilding is kind of like dodging bullets, right? So sometimes, yeah, you have to take those reps, you have to go there, but sometimes you don't, and sometimes you shouldn't. And this is where a lot of that comes with experience and wisdom. And yeah, knowing which it is, like, are you not taking that rep because you're pussing out because it's uncomfortable, or are you not taking it because it's actually the right decision? Like, those are definitely two very different things. And I think a lot of being an advanced lifter is kind of knowing the difference there.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes into what I call the spiritual part. That the spiritual part to me is really about experience, the experience, like you said. And I can think of that looking back, that some injuries I've had, I wouldn't have them now because I would know this that you're talking about, that, okay, this is not a good sign, but I can tell either way, both ways, sort of. Actually, one interesting thing was once funny thing is, most people, I would say, make too many excuses not to push hard, but there are a few that, the high achiever, overperformer sort of person, it's sometimes the other way around. And so I remember doing deadlifts years ago, 180 kilos, and I did 6 reps, and I wanted to do 6 again. And then after the 5th, I was like, should I really go for it? And then the ego said, like, yeah, you gotta, don't be a pussy, and I did, and I could even hear it sound like, and I didn't herniate the disc, but I got a bulging disc, and now I had issues with the lower body training for like months. But then, since then, I learned from my mistakes. I would say that half of my injuries I couldn't really do anything about. Half was me being stupid and not listening to the signals. But now, last year, I was doing, just as a more rehab thing, a unilateral deadlift, unilateral Romanian deadlift with a landmine, pretty much. And when I got to the strong side, just in the middle of the set, it's not heavy or something. I just feel it's like, and my lower back just cramped up. And, it was really painful. And I had to abort the workout and go home like this, super slowly, like an old man. But I could just tell somehow. It's like, I cannot even explain how. I could just tell that this is not really an injury. It's like my body doing some kind of protective measure so that I don't get injured. And yeah, it was exactly like having that back injury. It was so difficult to stand up and sit down. When you go to the bed, you kind of just have to take a leap of faith and do like a 360 into the bed. But next day, going to, I don't know what they're called, this one sort of physical worker, they're called naprapat in Swedish, but she pretty much like looked a bit at it, and then she did some stuff that loosened it up, and the next day it was like back to normal. So it's really like the experience part. And I talk about that all the time. You said earlier there's a difference between like thinking or believing something and knowing something. And that's the thing with experience. Sometimes it's not like you cannot even put it exactly into words. Because from your experience, you just know what's up here, right?
Yeah. And that was kind of my experience with the QL, where the first time I injured it, it was like, it took, like a month or two to like be able to move normally. And even for months and months after that, when I would bend down to pick something up, I would have to put my hand on my knee to support myself. And that was a habit that I had for like, I don't know, months and months, maybe even longer. And I probably re-injured it like 9 or 10 times on 9 or 10 different movements, like trying to find out what I could do. And but each time that I re-injured it, it wasn't nearly as bad as the first time. And see, I think the body kind of becomes hyper aware of an area. And if you get a little bit too close, it'll be like, nope, fuck off. Like we don't want any trouble. And so you're not really injured. Like I say re-injured it, but it's almost like it just tightens up, and it's like this self-defense kind of protective thing, as you said. And with experience, because the second time it happened, the first re-injury, quote unquote, I was like, oh, it's going to be another 2 months or something. No, it was like a few days, and then it was kind of back to where it was before. It's still not great, but like I could do. It wasn't as long as the initial injury, and so a lot of it is kind of the body being smarter than your brain, because you have an idea of what you should be able to do or want to do, or you might read some textbook, but the body knows if it's being damaged or not, and I think it can let you know for sure. And actually, I have a theory that because you do notice like some guys on PEDs, like pec tears are super common, and often like they don't have any warning signs at all. It's like there's no pain, and then they just go for a rep, and it's just like their entire chest just rips off.
Yeah.
I think there's actually maybe something about being on a whole bunch of gear that maybe cuts off that sensation. Because normally, if a natural gets injured, occasionally you'll have an acute thing, but it's much more common to have like, oh, my shoulder was hurting a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I think maybe PEDs cut off that warning sign until it's just too far gone, and then something rips.
Makes sense. Actually, it's interesting because I think of many things when you talk, but the thing is the body tells you a lot of stuff if you listen, and maybe some things are maybe easier to interpret from the start, but some things you kind of have to learn, like, this is sort of what this means, like just this knowing that I can know, certain things, like I might feel some kind of discomfort right here when I do this exercise, but I know also from experience this is not too much. I can handle that. It's like you get to learn how to read the signals pretty much. But one interesting thing, because part of it can also be seeing your blind spots. And I've noticed this. I talk about when I'm in what I call a high state. It's very much, it feels like a natural high in a sense, like more collected than if you actually just take a substance. But the way I would describe it is like I'm very stimulated, and it's a bit psychedelic almost, like I see patterns much more easily. But what I notice is that, I can handle a lot more in general, like training or whatever in that sort of state. But also, I do not quite feel, I don't take PEDs, but this natural high or whatever, I don't quite feel my true need for rest. So this time when I was running really high, working, producing a lot of content, it's like I'm keeping like, okay, Theo, you can do more than usual, but you are also going to think you can do even more than you actually can. And I handle it well now, but I had to come down a bit and be like, okay, I have a few days when I actually have to take it really chill, like really make sure that I get the right amount of sleep. So I think it's interesting. I just started thinking about that when you mentioned the PD guys, because it's like a similar thing, that something sort of just blocks feeling what's actually going on. So there's both this thing about learning how do you interpret the signals you actually get, but also knowing like where may I have a blind spot? When can I not just listen like that?
Yeah, that's super interesting. Like for me, I would say I'm pretty even keel, just in terms of like personality and energy levels. But a lot of that is, I think, I'll feel something maybe a little bit similar, but I guess if I feel myself getting too excited or like doing a little bit too much, I will almost like anticipate, if I go too far in that direction, I know that the correction is going to be not worth it. And so I tend to like either auto-regulate my sets or maybe take a day off. Like I will tend to be, because I've had times where like I was training twice a day and just like absolutely brutal training, but then like you just get burnt out, and then you have to take like time off of training completely, and you don't really get like the super compensation kind of thing that a lot of people say you do. Or at least I've never really experienced that. So I tend to kind of correct for that a lot earlier than I used to. And if I feel like I need to reduce my training, because it's easy to overdo it, I think. It's a lot easier to overdo it than underdo it. If you're that kind of like really driven person who has goals and really enjoys it, and maybe get some kind of high or stimulus from training. Like the stimulus is physical, but it's also mental, right? I think Christian Thibodeau, he would call it like a stimulus junkie, right? They're addicted to maxing out or to lifting really heavy or lifting really hard and like getting those really grindy reps. And I would say I kind of fall into that category, maybe not for lifting heavy, because that has structural downsides. But like lifting really hard, you do get like this sort of pleasurable sensation from it, but you also can't overdo that. Otherwise, the body can only recover from so much.
Yes. What was I thinking? I guess I could comment on that, but there's some things I want to talk about. I guess about the mindset. There's one thing I want to ask you about. Perfectionist mindset is something I see a lot with people I work with. And what I mean by that is this like all or nothing sort of mentality. And I just want to hear your thoughts about it. But pretty much what I see is that people have really high standards on themselves, and that either keeps them from even starting whatever it is, training in this case, maybe, because it feels like, this is what it would have to be, and I'm not going to be able to, so I don't even go there. But the other thing is also starting and doing something quite extreme, like on point for, let's say, 1 or 2 weeks, but then you missed something and they're like, okay, now it's all over. I just go completely in the other direction. And I have that myself. I notice that almost everyone has that to a degree, and lots of people that get really far with something. So I have some more thoughts about it, but I just want to ask you before sharing my own thoughts, like what about that do you recognize, or what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just another flavor of self-sabotage, where I kind of refer to it as like the bag of cookies. Like, oh, well, I've had one cookie. I might as well finish them all to protect myself from eating the cookies in the future. Like that's because once they're all gone, at least I can't eat anymore. It's like, I think we've all been there to a certain extent where, how should I put this? Where it's like the sort of screw it, like we're done now. Like we've gone too far, and you haven't really gone too far. Like you only had one cookie. You can stop, but like you went far enough that you think that it's just done. And with training, it's like, oh well, I didn't hit a PR on the first set I was going to do. Like I guess I'm just going home or something like that. And I think this is where having the maturity to just take the decisions one at a time is the way to go. Because perfectionism, it is just another form of self-sabotage, because you're asking of yourself and of reality something that's just never really gonna happen, right? Like there's gonna be times when things don't go your way. I mean, if someone is a stockbroker and they're buying like, and they're right 55% of the time, oh man, they're going to be ultra wealthy. They don't need to be 100% correct. Like they don't even need to be, just a little bit over 50% and you're fine. Same thing with gambling. Same thing with a lot of different endeavors. So you definitely don't need perfection. And I find it funny because usually the perfectionists are the ones who are just starting off. Yeah. The area where you need the least amount of perfection. Like it's not the advanced lifters who are like, all right, I'm going in. I need my wrist wraps and my knee wraps and straps, and I have to have 453 milligrams of caffeine. No, like the advanced lifter knows that it's never ever going to be, theoretically perfect. It's the beginner who doesn't actually have everything in context who needs that.
I would even say that it's because the advanced lifter has figured out this about that the perfectionism isn't really possible. That's why they got advanced. Because what I see, I learned a lot from this. I had my panic attack backstory. And there's one thing about just your beliefs, because when I was, the short version of that is, I am on sick leave 50%, and I have the program of trying. I have panic attacks every day, and I have to try to get to this job, just get through half the day and get back home, and that's it. Because I know I have to expose myself. I cannot, because otherwise I'm going to get used to being inside. And so first of all, it didn't feel possible at all. I felt like I messed up permanently, like there's no coming back from this. But I had to try, because I realized I cannot do to my parents and my life. That's actually how I was holding on at that time. But so it's both that I went into something like, I don't believe I can do this, but I'm acting as if as much as possible. And it was not linear, okay? Like I could maybe have a successful day when I managed to show up to this job, and I'm heading home at lunch. I'm like, yes, I did it today. And then the next day is like, not coming down to the subway, seeing all the people, too overwhelmed, have to turn around. But so that I kept at this, it both taught me that, even if I didn't believe in something, when I kept going for long enough, something happened and I started believing in it. But it also taught me this, that clearly I didn't have to be perfect, because it was very much like this. And you realize the progression curve, if you zoom out, it's going to be maybe a straight line, but really if you zoom in, it's going to look something like this. And so I think I brought that into the training. And that's the thing. People put way too high standards on themselves early. And I'm trying to teach what I call a second best option mindset instead. And I think it relates to what you said about taking one choice at a time. Because instead of letting like, I did one mistake, I'll just escalate. It's already a failed day. I might as well have the entire cookie jar there. It's like, no, if I had a cookie, what is the second best option? Well, did I stop it there? And let's say even if you couldn't help yourself, you ate more cookies, well, go hit your workout. You even if you overeat or something, you can still get a good workout in. You can make progress in that area, right? And so, I've started. This is something I've started doing for people. I talk about rigidity versus flexibility, and when like you and me, we at this point we're gonna have such a dialed-in process that we kind of know when to be a bit flexible and not. But there is this like root rigid structure that you're flexible around. And so the way I see it, before you have this, that you know how you function, what works best for you, you need sort of a rigid ideal to go for. Like, these workouts, these meals that look somewhat like this. But then there has to be a certain amount of flexibility around it. Because if you now put as the standard, I have to adhere to this, then as soon as something goes wrong, you're going to go off that. So I started, for people that are like newer, I started, I put the hierarchy of importance of things, and I gave, instead of being like exactly this, I put a little span of things, like here are the boundaries, but within this, so yeah, I don't know what to ask you with all of that, but this is highly interesting to me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of beginners, they don't actually know what is important. So maybe they're really focused on, this content creator said I should only do 4 to 6 reps. And so like they'll stop at 6 reps, even if they could have gotten 12 or something. And they think they did a good job. Like, I got 6 reps. Like I got the most reps out of that rep range. So but the proximity to failure and how hard you're pushing is way, way more important than any particular range. And then like for diet, they think, like I did a good job because I only ate these types of foods, without realizing like the calories are actually a lot more important, at least, for some things, for fat loss. Your calorie intake is going to be way more important than, I ate an avocado today, bro, or something, right? And so they often just don't necessarily know. And even if someone consumes a lot of fitness content just isn't very good. And it promotes the wrong things, or it overemphasizes the importance of some stuff that's just really trivially important. And I'm also a believer in science, but there are definitely some science communicators who they'll use a certain study to promote an idea that doesn't really necessarily matter, whether it's range of motion or whether it's a certain exercise or technique or whatever, right? Like without, and I realize that if you're creating short form content in particular, you can't start every video with like, well, make sure your diet is important and make sure you're getting your sleep. Like you just can't really, there's just no time. There's just no time to actually include the context that is important. And if someone's a beginner just sort of doom scrolling on their phone and they're getting exclusively 10 to 30 second snippets of content, I mean, they might feel like they've learned a lot, but it's all not useful stuff, or it's just this trivial bullshit that doesn't really matter. And they're never really getting that big picture hierarchy of what actually matters. And even intermediates fall into this as well. You know, I get questions from people where they ask me about these tiny details that sometimes I don't even focus on or consider or prioritize in my decision making. And they're almost upset when I tell them it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When they should be like, oh, cool. Like, that doesn't matter. Like, one less thing to focus on. No, they're like, oh, shit. And I think that reaction is them subconsciously realizing, if I'm not getting the results I want, and this other guy says that it's not these sort of small, trivial details, what is it? Oh, it's probably a big thing. Like, oh, I'm getting 5 hours of sleep, but I'm focused on like the tiny little biomechanical small thing about working this part of your back. It's like, yeah, but you're getting 5 hours of sleep, or you're like 8 reps away from failure. And that's a difficult conversation to have with some people because maybe subconsciously they know that they can't either live the lifestyle or they can't really get themselves to push hard enough. And so they're like, maybe subconsciously they realize that. And so they start focusing on all these little pebbles of sand, all these little details that could be a thing. And a lot of content creators are happy to push content to those kinds of people. And that is a lot of people where they're missing some big things: sleep, stress management, proximity to failure. And they maybe they realize it, maybe they don't deep down. I'm not sure. It probably varies a little bit, but they're just like searching for all these tiny details that even a lot of advanced lifters don't give a shit about.
Yeah. I agree. It can be, of course, so if someone just doesn't know enough, they can focus on the wrong things just because they don't know completely. But yeah, of course, it's more convenient that maybe I just have to train harder or something. It's like, oh, maybe it's this little thing that's more like a technical change I could do, you know. It's like, it's a similar thing that comes to mind is me being solution oriented and a trainer. When someone tells me like, oh yeah, you know, but I haven't been able to train this because of my knee, you know, or my knee. And what I always think is like, when does it hurt in your knee? Like, have you tried this? Yeah, I just start looking for the solution because I've had many injuries. None of them have I didn't have to stop. I didn't break my legs and I'm like, you know, like this. You can often do something and you can fix most injuries. But some people, they almost get upset when you start like, it's like, no, let me have my excuse. Let me have my like, victim story here.
Yeah. No, I've heard so many stories that someone's like, yeah, I got elbow tendonitis, and so I took 3 weeks off the gym. What the fuck is that? Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, you couldn't squat? Like, you couldn't do a front squat or a split squat or like nothing? You couldn't do anything? In my experience with a lot of injuries, the answer is it's not to do nothing. Yeah, unless you're like the broken leg situation. Even then, I'm dragging. What's that movie? Wolf of Wall Street, where he's like dragging himself to the car. Yeah. That's what I'm doing to the gym, and then I'm going to be bench pressing and rowing. And so, like for some people, they want that excuse. They need that excuse, and it's like the smallest thing. And I've worked with people where it's almost like the boy who cried wolf kind of situation where like every week there's a new injury that also heals within a week. And so eventually you're just like, oh, my knee is a bit sore. I'm like, all right, well, it's the seventh week in a row, something hurts, but also gets healed immediately. But then there's other people where if they say anything, I know it's serious because I know like they're a trooper. They don't actually say anything unless it's serious. And so this is where knowing the person is pretty darn important. But yeah, for some people, like the smallest thing, and they're like, well, I guess I should take off like a whole bunch of time. And that's probably the worst form of self-sabotage, because it's not even like you're striving towards like a perfectionism kind of thing. Like you're not even trying to optimize. You're just like, well, something went wrong just a tiny little bit. Guess I need my bed rest or something. So I don't think I've ever had a client with that. Maybe rarely, but I'll get it from speaking to people in passing. And I'm just like, I lose so much respect for people when they do that. So much respect, because it's not only illogical, but it's just the easiest out that you could give yourself. And then like, you just immediately take it. And it's just, I lose a lot of respect for people when they do that.
I mean, it can be different reasons there too. I think like some people just have, again, the too rigid idea of what it has to look like. But of course, some people are just looking for the excuse. And this is something I was thinking about this with flexibility and rigidity, as I call it, is that I think what makes like the advanced lifter, like advanced that they got that far, is I think of it as, how should I put it, like a ball that's rolling through this obstacle course, and you have to, sometimes it's kind of a straight and nice path forward, you just have to keep pushing the ball, but sometimes there's some stuff in the way there, but that doesn't mean like, oh, I just have to wait. It can be like, oh, can we maybe steer the ball a little bit like this? Can we do a little bit like that? So this with like having an injury, for instance, like go do something. You'll figure something out that works. Or probably that you doing that is what's going to bring you back to being able to do whatever you cannot do right now. But also think like, oh, you got poor sleep on a night. Like I know I've learned for myself personally, for instance, if I sleep poorly, I often am my max strength when I start out is the same, but I'll gas out. I'll lose way more reps, and so what I'll do is like, oh, I'll cut out some sets and maybe a complete exercise, and I know that it's not either hit the full workout, everything according to the paper of the program. There's a degree of how much of a stimulus did you get, right? So I think a lot of becoming an advanced lifter is it's again about being honest with yourself. Like, is it time to actually rest completely, or can I do something? What can I still do? And I think of it as protecting the progress, or kind of keep the game train going, even when it isn't just a straight path like that.
Yeah, I think this is where, if you get injured, often the answer is to do something different, right? Or sometimes it might even be doing more, right? Like if you have, let's say someone is a sprinter and they tweak their hamstring. I mean, the answer is to find what you can do. Like an RDL, probably off the table. Like a back extension, maybe off the table. But you can probably do a standing hamstring curl a few days later, right? Just to get some blood flow there.
Yeah.
You're not getting a big stretch. It's more contraction focused. And then it'll help strengthen the area, right? Like you kind of just look at injury as an abrupt and inconsiderate display of weakness of the body, where, it's not fun, but you've identified a problem that you can and should fix. Well, when I hear someone say something like, yeah, I benched 405 in high school, and then I hurt my shoulder, and that was that. I'm like, what do you mean? What? That just you were done with one injury for the rest of your life? It's just like you were clear. I mean, someone's clearly gifted if they bench 405 in high school, if they actually did, right? It's kind of a meme.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't do it partner assisted, but I mean, to just like give up completely, it doesn't make sense, and it's the easy way out. And I mean, I kind of get it, because maybe they didn't even like to lift, right? Like they weren't really into that, but they wanted something. Because I think for most non really into lifting people, they hear that story and they're like, yep, that checks out. Oh, you bent 4 or 5 and then you hurt your shoulder, and like that was that. Okay, fair enough. Like if you got hurt once, probably, it was going to happen a bunch of times, so it's just not worth it. And so, yeah, different people, I guess, have different values and different value that they put on lifting. And yeah, I still lose respect for someone like that, but I also try to understand where their head is at. And I think as long as someone isn't BSing themselves in terms of their goals, right? Like if someone says, oh, I bench 4 or 5 in high school, then I hurt my shoulder, and they seem like at peace with it, fair enough. But if like later in the conversation, they're like, yeah, I probably could have benched 700, like that Julius Maddox guy, I'm like, well, now you're fucking full of it, right? Like, because it was never going to happen. You were not that kind of person, right? It's the mindset, the mentality, as well as whatever physical potential you might have, right? Like you need both to realize high aspirations. But if someone, they gave it a shot and then they kind of gave up, like that happens to everyone, I think, in life. Like there are endeavors that I kind of tried out and then I didn't really like it, and then I stopped doing it, and I have a reason. Like maybe I tried a new game or something with some friends. Like we're playing something similar to Dungeons and Dragons, but a different game. And then like after a few hours, we're all kind of like, yeah, this is stupid. Like that happens. That happens. It's just part of life.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the thing is, when you look at it in a different way, of course, it sucks to be injured, but I've learned so much from my injuries, like just general mobility and flexibility training. I probably wouldn't know as much about if I didn't hurt myself a few times. Just one to move on from this and start rounding off a little bit, I think. But one thing about this, I think, when I boil it down, what do you really need to know to make training progress? Or like, what do you really need to do? When you boil it down, there are like 3 things to me. It's like you have to be consistent. You have to show up and do the thing consistently. You have to use a lot of effort, train really hard, and you have to apply progressive overload. And if you can apply progressive overload, like, maybe there's a lot of stuff you could be doing better, but this is the main thing you need to be doing. And with this perfectionist mindset, applying this is that, I work a lot with people that it's not just about, I want to lift. It's often people with can be some kind of mental health problem, but also problems with just habits and addiction and relationship to self. And what I try to tell some people is, I'll never lose the weight. We've done this. I haven't lost anything. It's like, well, yeah, because, some people, they are in a different spot than you when they start. They're going to be able to adhere to a deficit, but you have too much stuff with yourself. So we have to build habits, build better habits. We don't even have to focus on actively losing weight. And again, as long as you're in a state of progression, improving on, I more often eat good, healthy foods. I control what I eat. I more often go and hit a good workout. If this trend keeps going, eventually you get to that place when, you can actually lose weight. And that's the last thing I wanted to say. Okay, someone calling. Wait,
Yeah, I mean, this is why when people are pissed off about the fake natties who built incredible physiques over a year and a half, and then people are pissed off at that, and I'm like, why? Like, why do you care that much, right? Like, if they're natural, if they're not natural, it doesn't even. People will say like, oh, we need to know what is naturally attainable. It's like, do you know?
Find out.
It's like either way. Yeah, it's like either way, if they're natural or not natural, either way, it's like kind of a ridiculous transformation, right? And that's why a lot of people think it's not natural. But even if it was natural or not natural, either way, it's like it's not really relevant.
Yeah.
Right? Like I get people who ask me that they want to kind of know how good the progress that they've made is. So like they'll send me some picture or something, and they'll like say how many years they've been lifting and say like, is this good? And there's actually this kind of like a joke of this. Oh yeah, I'm 6 years old. I've been lifting 5 minutes. Is this physique good or something, right? Because everyone is trying to like gauge their progress in comparison to everybody else. And this is why I don't think some fake natties piss people off quite as much. Like, people don't really get as pissed off about Mike O'Hearn as they used to. But like, if someone is comparable to them, like, oh, it's only been lifting a year and a half or 3 years, like, they can relate to that and they can compare themselves to that, and it pisses them off even more. But this is where I don't think I've ever compared myself to other people. Like, I just don't. I mean, it just doesn't really matter to me, right? Like, I'm just, because to me, bodybuilding is like a very, it's a self-centered pursuit, which sounds bad. It's self-centered sounds bad, but you're just centered on yourself. Like, you're just focused on yourself and how you can get better, and you can learn a lot from other people. But yeah, I don't really spend a lot of time. I mean, I get sent videos from people who are like, this guy says he's natural, you got to call him out. I'm like, who is this guy? I don't care. What? It just doesn't matter to me, right? And so, I think this is where a lot of people are kind of comparing themselves to others, maybe a bit too much for their own good.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. I won't go too deep into that about comparing yourself to others, because you can do it from a place of like fear. Then it's no good. But if you can do it like with anything, like with criticism, if you can listen to criticism from a place of curiosity, if you can compare yourself with someone just from a just open mind, like, I wonder if you can keep it on that level, But what was it? The thing is with this, you got to call this person out and that. It's like, don't you think you're focusing a little bit too much on what other people do or don't do? What if you put all this effort into your process instead? And about this natural limit, I also get asked, do you think there is a natural limit? I'm like, I don't even think about it that way. I'll try to find the limit. I haven't yet. That's how I'm going to approach it.
Yeah, you just kind of, I guess comparing yourself, there are good and bad ways to do it. And when I get sent those messages, it's always in a bad way. It's never like a sort of an open-minded curiosity. It's like, oh, this guy looks too good to be natural, and like, you got to call him out, right? And I've been sent people where they say, oh, like, this guy's a fake natural, and I look at their physique and I'm like, I don't know, man, I'm bigger than this guy, right? Yeah. It's just, people's standards are getting lower and lower and lower, where they should be getting higher and higher and higher as we actually see what is possible. And I think it's just like a mental safe spot kind of thing, because if someone is doing way better than you in a given time frame, that can be difficult mentally, I think, to deal with. But I actually, I wouldn't say I don't compare myself at all to any other people. But it's generally like in a positive way, right? Like, oh, like, these are the best bodybuilders in the world, like, on stage. Like, they're bigger than me. They're more impressive than me. They have more muscle mass than me. And so like, hey, the standards are being elevated. Right. Yeah. That's the best way to go about it.
Yeah. The way I see, like, the way you learn about the world and people is by comparison. It's just, again, what place does it come from? The world is a mirror pretty much. So I compare myself to, and especially as a coach and teacher, and, I realize what I really do is I build individuals, I build me first, but then others. And then it is by comparison, just again, from I recognize that sort of trait or that sort of line of thinking or this physical thing, So if you do it from that place, that's just how you learn. But I think this thing that I've been focusing a bit on lately in content is this unfortunate property of humans to, instead of trying to just elevate themselves as much as they can, to feel better about where they're at, rather like, that's a fake natty. That's a fake natty, he's lying, or he has great genetics, whatever it is. Just like, instead of trying to do your best, you pull others down. So you're like, oh, see, I'm okay after all, kind of.
Yeah, I think this is a natural hypertrophy line. People would rather feel better than be better.
Yeah. Yep. Lie to themselves. Exactly. But it doesn't really fully work. It can, you can only fool yourself for so long. I had that experience with the panic attacks. I had been lying to myself about many things, and part of it was also being in poor shape physically from poor habits for a long time. But a big part was realizing, like, I told all myself these stories about how I'm doing much better than I actually am. So yeah, it's like a drug. Just lie to yourself. You've got to be comfortable for a little while. Yeah, man. How are you on time?
Yeah, I'm good. Maybe an extra like half an hour or so.
Okay, cool. So I guess I can just do this. I did a video on you quite recently, and I'm gonna start for this thing. I was very excited doing that video in general, but I'm gonna start doing this kind of video just because I can't stand the negativity and focusing on, oh, this person is lying or they're bad for this thing and that. I mean, there's always going to be some of that, but I want to do like effort to do something positive. So I'm going to keep that series up. But anything that what came to mind for you, or what did you think about watching that video?
Let's see. Well, I'm glad I could inspire you in some way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very, very flattering. I want to say, I don't know how spiritual I am. I guess I would be kind of curious as to why you might think I'm spiritual, because maybe, I don't know, maybe you've seen something that I haven't. Like, we all, again, as you said, we all have blind spots. So I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. And that was the main thing. I just wanted to hear what you thought, but that was the main thing I wanted to talk about. So, I mean, first, before I say anything, like, what would you say if you talk actually like religious beliefs? I don't consider myself religious, by the way. I consider myself spiritual. I have a belief in God, but I could call it a higher power or the universe or something, So just before I say why I say that, what's your kind of stance there?
Well, I'm not really religious either. My family and I, we would go to church every Sunday, but I guess I could never really get into it. It's like you dress up, which I didn't really like, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise to most of my followers. And, you sing songs and, meet people and stuff. But I guess I could never really get into it. It was more sort of like a thing you have to do rather than you're really looking forward to. So I'm not particularly religious. And in terms of a higher power, I can't write it off, I guess, because it's hard to prove either way. So I guess I'm somewhat open-minded there, but it's one of those things that I guess I don't think about on a day-to-day or even like a year-to-year level. Like, it just doesn't really cross my mind very often, really.
No, I understand. Yeah, I mean, there are several things. I think this thing, so when I started talking about a little bit holistic bodybuilding mindset and stuff, it's like there is a component to like the inner game, or whatever you want to call it, that's not about the mind necessarily. It's about experience again. And what I pick up on following your, as I say, I mainly follow your Instagram stories. I really like the format, but it's a lot of you observing what you do and speaking out loud. This is what it's like. This is what I'm going to think of. It feels like this, and that kind of thing. But it's also one thing that to me, you seem like a guy that wants to be right, as I call it, not right as, I want to win the argument so my ego feels good, but you want to be truthful and right. Like what I see with you is that you're doing your own thing, and yeah, it's not obvious where you will end up with certain things, because you're not going to be like, well, I guess This is the team I'm supposed to be on, so I'll take that side. So it's these things together. Just I'm like, maybe you're a bit more. It depends on the definition again, but just this that you really have this skill of observing yourself really well. That I see that a lot of people don't. Like you know yourself very well, and also this like that I see this morals like working in the background, sort of.
Well, the way I programmed this chatbot was to have it be very open-minded. And so everything you see here is AI. Like the background is AI. This everything is AI. So the stories, they're AI. The gym doesn't actually exist. And so, no, yeah, it's one of the things where I try to consider, I guess, the ramifications of everything that I post. Like the ripple effects, which is not always easy. And yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm not necessarily thinking about it too much. Like if I'm posting a story or something, it's kind of just something's on my mind, and then I kind of just talk about it. But yeah, I try to. It's difficult because when you're creating content for a lot of people, you don't really know who you're talking to, as weird as that sounds, right? And so you don't actually know the entirety of the impact that it's going to have. Like you might put out something super, super positive. For example, I posted a few pictures of like my wife and I on vacation or having a good time or something. And I thought like, oh, like this is a really positive thing. I got so many negative DMs from people like with crying emojis and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? And they're like, I'm so lonely. I'm like, what? Because they were just like lonely and like, I don't know, jealous, or it's just, and so yeah, even if you post something really positive, you don't actually know the reception that it might get, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. But that's a little bit of a different thing to me, because I mean, I don't know, just I get the sense that you're cautious sometimes, like waiting, like even you talk about the running, I'm going to wait some years, but then I'll have a video. And I like that. But what I mean is like, I always see you arrive at your own conclusion based on what you just think is right. And I appreciate that. I feel like you're very, very value driven like that. Of course, there are other people like that, but I feel like you see too much still that someone just will, I don't know, avoid something or not go there. And yeah, this is just something I see with you. But the other part, what do you think about that? Like, what's your this observing of the self? Have you thought about it that way?
To a certain extent, I guess. And I think that can be useful because sometimes you're too close to yourself to really think of good. Well, I think this was a Chris Williamson line where it's like, if you were the hero of the story or the hero of the movie, what would the audience be screaming to do? Like, oh, you should move to this place, or you should, call up that girl, or whatever it is. And so I think, yeah, having that mindset, and maybe this gets into like coaching yourself, because coaching yourself, you kind of have to be like, okay, if I was coaching myself and I was telling myself what to do, what would I do, rather than just me doing something in the moment. And so I think that's a good way to kind of remove yourself from your present situation and to be maybe a little bit more objective and perhaps even a little bit more analytical. And then, yeah, just to think about things a little bit more slowly, right? Like, let's say you miss a deadlift attempt. Like, you don't have to rush back in there and try it again. Like, you can take some time and kind of, like, you're in the gym, it's a controlled environment, right? So, and then, just in life, I guess, yeah, try to remove yourself from the situation. And I think that gets easier past like 25-ish years old, and especially past 30. Because, like, yeah, if someone's 18 years old or 20 years old, that can be pretty hard to do, I think.
For sure. I guess I'll relate back to something you said. You said, like, when you ask a client, for instance, like, how did that feel? And they don't even quite know, That's sort of what I mean. You definitely know what it felt like. And that's coming from someone that's observing themselves instead of just being in the fog of everything going on with you, And I recently did this experiment where I would talk about myself in third person. I got so used to it so fast because I just don't usually talk that way. But that's pretty much how the way I look at it, with spirituality. It's sort of like, this body and the mind. There's a spirit that resides in this and operates this. And really the spirit is the observer. And that's what I mean, that spiritual, like, I have a belief in a higher power or something or not. But the actual act of being spiritual, if you see what I mean, that's sort of what I see in you. And that's what I appreciate, and that's because that's what I feel just a lot of people would need to do, like step outside themselves, watch themselves from the outside, because this way you'll get to, just look at it. This is, I'm not really Theo. He's just my guy. He's my vehicle. Theo, he functions like this. He went through this. It's like I have a model of the individual Theo, and I know what patterns he has and what I should tell him, and like that, So I guess I do it a bit more actively and talk about these things in my content, but I just see you do a similar practice. And that's a funny thing that the training can be so spiritual, because you really have to go off of your experience so much.
Yeah, like I was joking about the chatbot thing earlier, but it's one of those things where you can get kind of locked up in just your habits or your programming or what you're expected to do. And yeah, being able, a lot of people, they can't even really see the situation that they're in or even see themselves for who they really are. Like they have a different view of themselves than reality. Like they just can't kind of wrap their head around how things really are. Because I think maybe for a lot of people, it's a bit painful to really look at themselves.
Yeah.
If they're not happy with how things have gone or the choices they've made or sort of where they've ended up. But it's the best way to make progress, right? Because, rip the Band-Aid off. And it's not easy at first, but yeah, it can be very effective.
Yeah, most people, I would say most, their entire personality is just some kind of overcompensation and defense mechanism, like this, just, I can take my old self as an example, just the things I would tell myself about how I am, it's like, it's complete lies. You're just telling yourself that because it would feel better if that was the case. Just be honest. And that's what I mean, again, with being truthful, because to me that's what it comes down to. If you're spiritual, if you believe in a higher power, if you think there's right and wrong, it's like being right is a lot what it's about, and then being truthful is the thing. And it goes both ways. You have to be able to say, I'm actually good at this, or I'm doing well at this, or the opposite, like I'm running from some responsibilities here, or this is my weakness, whatever it is. How I got into this at all was that I think a lot also in terms of masculinity and femininity, and not in any sort of mainstream way. Like, I think the relationship between the sexes is kind of messed up now. And I think it's kind of weird because I want to talk about it in a very like factual way. I don't want to be like, I'm this manosphere guy, or like, I'm this defender of women. I'm just like, no, these are just things I observe going on. And so masculinity and femininity, it's not just about men and women. It's also within us. So, for instance, the masculine side would be the one that's like, you got to get better. You got to push harder. Come on, what are you doing? Get up, do it again. While the feminine part would be the one that says that, hey, you're good enough as you are. It's okay that you're having a worse day, for instance. And now you can be too masculine in one area, and you can be too little masculine in one, and too feminine in one, and so on. What I noticed is that lots of guys these days, they are a bit too soft outwardly, but they are really harsh to themselves in here. And what I noticed going through these panic attacks was that this was so brutal, so difficult, that I couldn't have my typical self-talk. Suddenly, there was just a different voice that was like, hey, like this is really tough, that you're even doing this. It's like you're doing well. And I felt this gratitude. And I think that's how I found the observer, just like the one that noticed that, something changed with the way I talk to myself, And ever since, I just, it's like a switch is flicked. I just follow that path pretty much. And it's just kind of interesting to see like someone like you that don't identify with like being spiritual much, but I see like, oh, well, it's a lot of the same thing that I do and I practice instead that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess taking this back to lifting, I do see a lot of people kind of like lift as punishment or like lift to fight off their demons. And then they see me lift and they're like, man, he must have some really big demons. No, I like this. I enjoy this. It's part of self-care and it's something that I'm doing for myself. And so, my thoughts are very positive when it comes to lifting. I don't really have any negative self-talk. It's just, I don't know. I never really, I just viewed it as like an interesting challenge. Even if I had a really hard workout, there was never anything negative about it. And I think fighting off demons can work really well temporarily, but it's not a particularly long-term strategy. And if you look at a lot of the best athletes, it's like a very sort of positive and driven and focused thing, but it's never like a negative thing or like a fighting off demon thing. Yeah, because if you call on that energy, it's just not worth it and it's not sustainable. And I think most people who do it, they don't really realize how much better it is to not have to do that, I guess, because it's stressful on the body and it's stressful on the mind. It's just not a good way to approach things in the long term. Now, if someone went through a breakup or something and like that's the thing that gets them in the gym, okay, like use that energy, but realize you have to have something else when that fades away, because it's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, I would tend to think of it in the other direction, that if you think that, what's supposed to fuel me in the gym, it's my demons or this negativity or something, it's like, that's not good. However, like you said, if you're going through, you have some kind of negative emotions, then maybe a good way to deal with them is to channel them into the workout. But it shouldn't be like, this is how I get pumped up for the gym. I just talk all this shit to myself. Or because, for instance, last year, it doesn't really matter why I've figured out a lot about myself and my background, and I realized that anger is my most suppressed emotion. And it comes from, I grew up with an autistic brother, and he was violent to me, and I was always told that, hey, you can't get angry because he doesn't understand as well, pretty much. And so I just learned that it's a shameful emotion that I shouldn't feel. And then I started letting that anger out in a more healthy way. But then I had a while when I was angry every morning, and I kind of liked the feeling. It's not like I'm feeling bad. It's just this intensity, and then during that period, it was great to channel this into the workouts, and I would always feel calm afterwards. But I would never say that's the way to go about it. That's how you should do it,
Yeah, no. If someone can only go to the gym through channeling their demons, they're not really incentivized to actually deal with whatever problems they have, right? And so, let's say someone is a world championship squatter, like a power lifter, and they need to channel those demons every time they get under 800 pounds or whatever. Well, it's almost like an addiction I've seen. Where people it is a rush. It is, that adrenaline. You could feel the heavy bar. Obviously, I don't have a ton of experience with 800 pounds personally, but I've talked to people who have similar stories, and it's almost like they can't stay away from this, but they also can't deal with whatever that is, because when they do, they've kind of gotten locked into that pattern of using that, and they don't know how to do the same thing without using that. And so they're almost locked in that that repetitive pattern, because they kind of have to keep doing this. Like I talked about the stimulus junkie earlier. They're locked into that because they have to summon the demons in order to get rid of them temporarily, because it's the only way that they know how.
Yeah. One thing earlier when we were talking, I don't remember exactly about what, but I think, I talk about high state, low state. And what I mean by is state of being. And it's not just your emotion. It's like the literal state your entire individual here is in. So it's also about the nervous system, right? And so I think I talk about something sometimes I call state management. And I mean it two ways. It's both like, how do I protect my state? Like how do I, don't go too high or don't go too low? What actions can I take that influence this? But the other thing is also when you kind of can't choose, like I'm angry over something or I'm sad over something, then it's more like, what's the best way to deal with this now? And so for training, for instance, being angry or anxious, it's like among the best feelings you can have when you're going to train, because it's a strong sympathetic nervous system drive there. And I feel like I perform so well then. And then in a more depressive sort of state, it's harder to train, but I can still do it. But I noticed then that if it's like being angry, for instance, then it would be like just smash it, just completely smash it. And if there's a little leak in the form, I don't care at this point. But when I'm more low, I'm not going to be able to get into that mode wherever I do. So that's when maybe I completely embrace that. I'm like, I'm going to go even slower. I'm going to do past squats now or something like that, So, yeah. It's if you think that the gym is going to solve, like heal your demons, you're wrong. But it can be help of like dealing with some part of it, but you have to figure out what it's actually about to begin with too.
It's a temporary, like if anything, it might make them stronger. I've seen that happen. But it's not really a solution. It's just sort of a way to siphon off that energy, I guess. For me, I would say one thing I've gotten pretty good at is like you get up for training. Like, I mean, training is tough. Like you have to be able to put in a lot of effort into it. Whether you're in I guess your high state or low state, like it's still going to be challenging, right? Like in order for it to be effective, you just might tweak some of the details. I would say I'm pretty good at getting up mentally for the workout for, hour or two a day, but then also kind of bringing myself back down and spending the other 22 or 23 hours in just a very mentally relaxed state. And I think if someone either can't get themselves up for the workout or if they can't bring themselves back down afterwards, they're going to have difficulties. So one person just won't be able to get the stimulus needed to build muscle, to keep progressing, to build strength. The other person, they're going to get burnt out. They're going to possibly get injured. They're just not going to be recovering nearly as well. And so, like get up for your workout and then immediately try to shut off and relax. And so, it's sort of two sides of the same coin, but you need both. Otherwise, you run into issues.
Yeah. So really quick, how do you do to get down, so to say?
So I usually go for a walk after training. That seems to help quite a bit. I wouldn't go for like an hour or two long walk. I have at times, but at that point, I think you're eating into recovery, and it starts to become another source of stress if you walk for, a couple hours after a workout. But, 20, 30 minutes, not particularly hard. I also think getting in food is probably a good idea post-workout. I also think maybe getting in some kind of nutrition either before or during the workout can kind of blunt the cortisol response, just give you some energy so you don't have to tap into your own reserves quite as much, especially for higher volume workouts. I think getting in some carbs, just a sports drink or something, or, I actually was getting in a couple of ice creams before a workout because just dentally, it's probably not as good to have a sports drink where you're just sort of painting your teeth with sugar. And so I was just like slamming a couple of ice creams and then drinking water the rest of the time. But I think having some carbs during your workout is probably a good idea. And then I think, yeah, just maybe it's personality or just practice. Like I don't really get worked up for a lot of things apart from the workout. Like it's just not really, I don't know, like it's, there's not really a lot going on, or even if there is a situation, like being able to not have like a big stressful response to some kind of situation, and, you know, being able to breathe through it is, because it's your reaction to a situation that causes the stress response. It's not the actual situation, right? Like how could a situation cause you anything? No, it's like how you perceive it, and how, you know, how your breathing elevates, and how like the stress hormones and adrenaline and catecholamines, how they respond. And so like just not allowing yourself to respond to whatever it is. And I know this sounds like a lot easier said than done, but with practice, it's pretty easily done as well. You just like, you're not willing to spend your energy on whatever bullshit this is. And it could just be like really small stuff. Like I see people getting worked up about like arguments online, or like, you know, they send a video like, this guy made a video on you. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. Okay. That doesn't, like, you have enough beef on the internet and suddenly it just doesn't affect you anymore. So I think maybe repetition is part of it, because the more you do something, like, just the less novel it is and the less of a stress response you might get to it. And so, yeah. And then also just taking my time warming up as well. Right. Cause like your body is going to have its own schedule every day with how long that takes too.
Yeah, that's all great. I'm going to try to keep my response short. You know, to me, this is part of the spiritual thing, that you talk about the respond instead of react sort of thing, because that's what a lot of people, they just react. They haven't observed themselves enough to know their patterns and how they could react to something. Because I'll say this, from my childhood, I just know that I have a tendency more towards like anxiety and being excited. It's the same nervous system, right? But I can also be more shut down. But it's more that part that I have to like manage. And yeah, this, like, for instance, I know that I can get like by noises or stuff interrupting me that I'm not prepared. I can, if I don't watch myself, I can like get really just unnecessarily work myself up more than I would need to. When I learned this, if I just kind of, I see it as catching almost the stimulus. I'm like, you take a little breath, like, okay, that was annoying. And then instead of like going into this, it just shut it down like that. Yeah. And so I noticed for me, for the other, that's all great stuff you said. But for me, I noticed that I tend to hurry up too much. So sometimes it's just even about the pace you're moving at. Like, I finished the workout and I gotta go buy some food though, and I gotta eat real quick before I have to go have this client, and I stand eating like, you know, like this, and that's not good. Like, I might feel okay. Well, I like kind of that feeling, but later it's gonna maybe make it difficult for me to sleep if I like work myself up more like that. So
yeah. My experiences are pretty similar. I mean, if someone sees my stories of me in the gym, they're probably like, this guy is a fucking psycho. What's wrong with this guy? And then they see me like walking around outside, they're probably like, is this guy stoned, or like what's going on with this guy? Like, and so, by the way, I'm definitely not, because that shit is illegal in China. So yeah, just officially formally. Actually, if someone goes to another country and they get, you know, high or whatever, and then they come back to China and they get drug tested, they'll still, you know, get their ass kicked out. So yeah, if someone thinks about coming to China, be careful about what you do beforehand, just for the record. But yeah, it's just a very different state. And I've noticed this about, like, you look at Usain Bolt right before the workout. He's, you know, he's chill, and he's like, you know, joking around for the camera and stuff. And I'm sure his heart rate is fairly elevated above baseline, but he's still kind of conserving energy. Like you can see him when the camera pans away and it's time for the race. That's when he's, he's in a mentally different state than he was just before. So being able to turn that on and then turn it off, especially for training, I think is very, very important because, keep your training as training. Like you don't necessarily have to go to the same mindset as when you're competing. And I don't compete at all at, for even that. So in some ways the training is the competition, but you can't always be all the way turned up, right? Like I think the harder you can push yourself, the less hard you need to push yourself, because you probably can get to a point eventually where you're able to push yourself so hard that you will break yourself. And so I don't think very many people are there. I'm kind of getting to that point at times where I'm like, that was actually a little bit too hard. Like I actually probably should have chilled out a little bit on that set. And I actually heard, I think Alberto Nunez say this, where it's like, I don't think he has like music or anything to amp himself up, because like it's like too much. It pushes him past the point where it's actually useful. And you say that to the average beginner, and they're like, "Nah, harder is always better." It's like, I thought that way 5 years ago, but you can develop that skill to the point where it goes over the curve to the point where harder is actually counterproductive.
Yeah, I would say that it's fewer. It's like most people are undertraining rather than overtraining, but it is possible. It is possible. Yeah, the short on that is, for me, with slowing down, I noticed that the tendency, with Theo's tendency, is to want to speed up. When I should slow down, it's like, no, I got to get it done. And this is, if I don't watch myself, I'll go into a pattern. And suddenly, if I was feeling calm and centered before, suddenly I feel like, my mind is all scattered because I just let myself go into this. I'm just stumbling all over the place. So actually resisting the urge to speed up, not even any major other thing than that, just do everything a little bit slower. Many times I notice that, what was about to go up, it kind of comes down again. But I call it the reaction loop. When you do the opposite of this, that you something happens and you react to it, and then it doesn't change in the way you would like. So you react to this, and it's worse. I used to have terrible stage fright, and this was exactly what always happened. Like, oh no, I'm nervous. I can't be that when I'm doing this, and it has to go away. And then it's like, it didn't go away. It's worse. Like, no, this can't happen. And suddenly it's almost a panic attack from all of this.
Yeah, and I think this is where you can break that cycle. Like, maybe you're in that loop, and then someone like just puts their hand on your shoulder or something, and is like, oh, actually we're fine. Like, you know what I mean? So but being able to take yourself out of that loop, because like a good friend might be able to tell what's going on, right? Like they can say, okay, well, this is what's going on, and I'll help him by like just reassuring him somehow. But being able to take yourself out of that loop. And I think you can do that through like various breathing exercises or mental exercises is very, very useful for sure.
Yeah, a quick, because I'm not going to be able to tell the whole story now, but pretty much that used to be a huge problem, and it was a great pain for me because I feel like I'm actually meant to, whether it's on camera or in person, to be in front of people and do something one way or another. So I felt very blocked by this stage fright. But so afterwards, when I started observing myself, there was just one time, I'm not going to tell the entire story, but I was working in a gym, and pretty much with very short notice, I realized that I might have to fill in for a group training class that I've never done. I don't know, like the choreography, the exercises. I don't know the technology of setting up the headset. I don't know anything. And so when I get when I realize it, I notice this, like, this stress response in my body. But instead of the usual pattern of like, no, I cannot be like this now, I'm just observing that, okay, I got a little nervous now. All right, now go to the solution. And then I could keep it at that level when there's just a slight nervousness, and I just am solution oriented. I'm not in denial of my experience. I'm letting myself be a little nervous. And then that's all it is. And in the end, I was actually excited, like, oh, I have the plan now. Like, oh, this is going to be pretty cool. And I have good excuse to not do it perfectly because I'm filling in. Then at the last minute, someone showed up. And at that point, I was instead like almost disappointed that I didn't get to do it.
Yeah, this is where I think even like vocalizing how you feel, like if you're filling in and he said, the class, like, I'm a little bit nervous, but we'll be okay. Everyone's like, oh, okay. Because it's almost like, let's say someone's in the cafeteria in high school and they trip and fall and like, oh, their food goes everywhere. You could like freak out, or you could like go over and get a mop and clean your shit up calmly. And everyone's going to look at you and be like, he took care of business. Like, he didn't give a, he didn't care. I like it's going to be less stressful for you. And, I had this happen like a year ago. I was getting, blueberries, and I was trying to carry too much stuff, and one of them fell over, and like the container burst open, and blueberries rolled everywhere. I just went over, I picked up every single blueberry, and I put it back in there, and I just went over and I paid for it. I didn't eat them because they were on the fucking floor. Yeah. But like, if something bad happens, just deal with it, and then people don't really give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, if someone saw me do that, and I'm like, that sucked, but he didn't really care about it, and I didn't.
Yeah, take stuff moment by moment. Actually, I just recently, when my backpack was kind of, it doesn't close entirely. So if it's very full, something could get out. And I bought food. I'm walking past this vegan cafe, and a Greek yogurt just slipped out and just in the ground, and it didn't entirely break. Like the lid broke a little, so there was some yogurt coming out, and everyone is like looking and laughing, and I'm just like, I just went there, had some paper, just like brushed it off, put it back. Like it's only as big of a deal as you make it, pretty much.
People are usually looking for your reaction as much as whatever it happens, and so it's and this is something that, if someone is in high school or maybe college, it's again, it's easier said than done, but just maybe planting that seed in someone's mind that it's not the actual situation, it's just how you respond to it. And if you respond calmly and you just kind of take care of business, you'll actually get more respect from people.
Exactly.
And it might be a little bit harder to do in the moment, but like, it's better than kind of just like, oh no, running away. Like, just take care of business. Bad shit happens, and you just kind of have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's almost like the mistake. Now you're cool because you acted so cool about it. So before we go, we could have gotten longer into this, but I just want to get a little bit about the fasting. Just you tried it recently. I found it interesting to follow. So just what I'm sure you're gonna want to suck on that one before making content or anything yourself too. But kind of what was your experience? Like, what's your takeaway right now from that?
It was surprisingly easy. The first day was a little bit difficult around like dinner time, but for me, I usually don't eat in the morning anyway. And then I usually go train around maybe 1 or 2, and then I get back around 5 or 6 and usually have my first solid meal then. So that part was pretty easy. Like, I'm already not eating in the morning, and then you miss the first day meal, and now it's the second day, and your body just kind of gets used to, you're not eating at this time, therefore you're not anyway. And so the only time it would be a little bit difficult around dinner, like 5, 6, 7, 8. But then at a certain point, your body's like, well, we're not getting food, clearly, this asshole. And so the sleep was actually really, really good. Totally fine. And it was kind of in juxtaposition to how bad my sleep was at the end of my cut in 2023, where I was getting like 3 to 5 hours a night, just waking up and really, really suffering through things. And so I think there's a difference between having 0 calories and being a high enough body fat where your body's like, well, okay, we'll just use this. And being like sub 10% and very lean and maybe having other sources of stress and doing a bit too much training, that kind of stuff. And, day 3 was even easier. Day 4 was also easy. I did train on a few of these days, which I think you don't train during the fast, but I think that's probably the main roadblock for me doing like a week-long fast. I don't doubt that I could if I just didn't train, because like day 3 and 4 are super, super easy, even if I trained on day 3's and day 4. But I also don't want to take a week off the gym. And I do think that training and then not eating for like 4, 5, 6 days is probably not really a great idea. At the very least, I don't think you're going to be really, even if you stimulate muscle protein synthesis, you're not getting any energy or any protein or anything. So it's like probably not particularly useful. But yeah, in terms of fat loss, very rapid, very visible. You do get a big rebound in weight, obviously, when you refeed. I did have a very big meal. I had a very big meal right away at the end of the fast, which I don't think is advisable. I could feel like my heartbeat in my stomach and
and get tired also.
No, I felt okay. Like my insulin, I think my insulin sensitivity is probably pretty good. I probably was missing a bit of glycogen from the training, so I felt okay. But you do get this sort of rush of insulin. You can feel like your blood vessels kind of expand, and you get like you start getting a pump and start feeling really hot just sitting there. I probably ate 5,000 or 6,000 calories in one sitting, so not. I think it's better to like ease into it. So because you can have some real trouble if you overfeed too quickly. So I probably shouldn't have done that, but I don't know. I kind of figured it'd be okay. I have a pretty strong digestive system. But it was an experience. Like you start getting hot, you start sweating, you start like you see. I saw like a vein in my forehead and shit. It was like what's going on? And then I got a pretty big spike in weight, but I was definitely down maybe a couple kilos.
Yeah. So about the 1 week fast, it's like, I wouldn't recommend that to anyone like in our position. It's more like I did it once as we chatted a little bit while we were doing the fast. I did it once, but it was more like the challenge, I want to try what that's like. I did train like full body every day on that one. It was just like 1 set per exercise. It was surprisingly strong on day 6. I remember doing like squats. Like I was so it was 10 reps with 130 kilos with a very different form than I use now. But I just remember that it was like I shouldn't be able to do this much back then. Sometimes I always feel like it's like this combination that the body's kind of trying to save resources. But when you're doing something through effort, it's like the body doesn't know what. So maybe it's like, oh, maybe this is when we're getting the food or something. And it's like almost like you got that superpower from that. No, but the way I would implement fasting for guys in our position, it's like 60 to 120 hours is the span I think is best. And then it's like, doesn't have to be a regular thing. I did it this year within this span, but I did them every other week because I want enough time to recover properly from the fast and be able to hit some good workouts before I go into the next one. More frequently or longer, that would more be for someone with like food addiction problems and stuff like this. So yeah, I think the way you implemented it was always how I thought kind of that it would be for you.
Yeah, I felt surprisingly good. I hit PRs, not on everything, but on some things, which I'm pretty happy with. And then, if someone is very overweight and they have food addiction, like this is definitely food addiction is such a weird one because like you have to eat food at some point, right? So it's not like alcohol or some other addiction where you can cut it off and you're fine. I mean, well, obviously, withdrawal, but then you'll be fine. mentally.
You're not going to have to drink again at some point. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like food, you kind of have to, you got to do something at some point. So yeah, that's definitely a tricky one.
Yeah. Last thing I can just say to tie it back to the self-talk, mindset, observation thing is like with the fasting. First, it was more difficult for me at the start. Like I really struggled with hunger and getting like nausea and stuff. Then it was better, but I could feel hungry. But I just learned to be efficient with how I dealt with that. That as soon as I noticed some kind of impulse towards eating, again, it's a little bit like that reaction loop thing. Instead of entertaining the thought, like, oh, what would that taste like? Or could I have something? Because then it just gets more and more. And I kind of learned to just dismiss it as soon as I saw it. And it's kind of interesting because now I almost don't really feel hungry ever during the fast. But something I notice is that if I'm on Instagram and scroll and I see some food, I will automatically just stop and linger on a bit, which I would never do otherwise. But same thing, I've just learned that okay, as soon as you catch it, just pass by, because this is, if you start imagining what would that taste like, and that's when you, end up where you don't want to be.
yeah, for sure.
No, okay, man. I think it was a great podcast again. Before we go, just let people know where they can find you or anything else you want to plug here at the end.
Yeah, just Geoffrey Verity Schofield on Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to push your book or anything?
Yeah, verityfit.com for my 3 books that I have.
Yeah. Like I feel like you undersell yourself so much with that stuff. It's like just you have good stuff. Just throw in at people's face a bit more. Okay. Great one, Geoff. See you guys in the next episode. I'm not sure when, but we're back up and running. Peace.